What I liked about him when I saw him in person at the East-West.
So I think this kid gives you a lot of potential in terms of what you're looking for up front.
I see him in the Bears offense as a Z or a slot receiver, not the X, because they want the real big guy playing the X.
You know, he could be sitting out there in the third round, and you could be getting a guy that could be your situational pass rusher.
I think he's a perfect fit for what I've been told the Bears are looking for.
This is my 3 technique for the Bears, especially if you don't take a guy like Jalen Carter at the top of the draft. This would be a nice pickup. Fits perfectly in the system.
My gut feeling is this would not be a guy the Bears would take.
It's a good name because that's a guy that I'm intrigued by. Obviously, here with the Bears, you know, defensive line, defensive front is a huge need.
I think he's the best center in this draft.
Welcome, everyone, to a freshly minted episode of Draft on Tap with me, Aldo Gandia, Neil Stopchinski, and Danny Shimon. I just want to start by saying this is the place to come to for lots of Chicago Bears draft information. It's not only what we're doing before the shows, but also on draft week. We are loaded with a planned 38 hours of draft coverage. That's right. We're going to be live on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We'll also be talking about the Bears draft immediately afterwards on shows on Sunday and throughout the following week. And of course, we've got all our shows leading up to the draft, and including that's in our Patreon page where you get exclusive scouting reports from Danny Shimon and Greg Gabriel, the former director of scouting for the Chicago Bears. All of those reports tailored for the Chicago Bears fan, the Chicago Bears needs. So with that, let me bring in our guys one at a time. There's Danny Shimon wearing his Superman shirt. What's going on, Super Danny?
Yeah, I put it on today because I feel like I did a super job on my mock draft. I went ahead, I went to town. I know Aldo's already hating on my mock draft, but we'll get into it later on. But yeah, so I'm doing great, feeling awesome. 2 weeks away, 2 weeks from today, if I'm not mistaken. I'm doing the math right there. Carry this one, But yeah, so 2 weeks from today, we'll be on live. We'll see what Ryan Poles and company does. Like I said, the beginning of this offseason, this is a huge test, a career-making offseason for, in my opinion, for Ryan Poles. And so far, he's out to a timid start, in my opinion, but some people like what he's done. We'll see. I'm going to give him to the end of the offseason and see what happens. But it's a very important couple nights coming up for Ryan Poles.
Yeah, and along with me busting on your draft, it's going to be this man here, Neil Stopchinski. Neil, how are you, my friend?
Man, I am doing awesome, dude. What a day. What a week. This weather.
I just want to ask Neil, how many Red Bulls are you down so far? How many Red Bulls are you in?
Well, this is the only one for today so far, and I picked out the perfect one today so that while I take my sips, you could easily see, right? You see the branding right there, the logo,
yeah.
Right?
That's
You're
right.
listening, Red
We're
Bulls.
just waiting for the checks to come in from Red Bull now. That's all we're waiting for.
Yeah, as I take the drink. Oh man, got my wings on, baby. Let's time to rock and roll.
I love it. Well, we are going to take a look at mock drafts here. Danny has made about 46 trades in his mock draft, and it's only a 3-round mock. And Neil stuck to the rules.
It's called a mock, so you can mock it, right? That's the reason it's called a mock. I'm giving you guys something to mock.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I get you. And I asked for mock drafts from Barflies on social media. I did get one. And so J2K submitted one. Yeah, just one.
J2K?
Wow.
So
Guys, barflies, I'm disappointed. I expect at least 5 or
You're
10 here.
slacking, dude.
I'm disappointed too, but maybe they can jot theirs down in the chat and I'll try to collect them. If you do list your mock on the chat room, just the 3 rounds, you are allowed to trade, but it's got to make sense for me to read and put up on the screen. So
Can I ask F.A. King Foster what the hell that means?
Let's see what the hell. Saddle up your fucking meatloafs,
don't know what the hell that means.
Here's the thing. He's been asking all of the barroom show hosts to say that. So I don't know if he's maybe putting together a video or it's just for his jollies. I'm not sure. King Foster is the man, though.
Boy, set up your fucking meatloafs. Is that what it's supposed to be? I have no idea. No, just like throwing shot out there. Throwing shit on the wall, see if it sticks, right?
There you go, Foster. Hope that works for you. All right, so why don't we look at J2K's mock draft first to start with? That I think that'll be a good warm-up. Now, we don't have to go through all of these picks unless you guys want to, but clearly he traded out of the first round.
I was a little too adventurous with my trades.
Yeah, this is my number one problem with this draft is that he is traded completely out of the first round, and I'm afraid that there's not a sure thing in this draft. These are all good players. These are all players that could potentially be great contributors to the Chicago Bears. Every single one of these guys, but I want a sure thing. I want a Paris Johnson, or I want a, name a guy in the defensive line that's a sure thing. Or Will Anderson. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, these are all. I mean, listen, I'm the biggest Tuli Tuipulotu guy. I'll bang the table for that guy, and you guys will see later on what I do with him in my mock draft, but he's a guy that I love him, but again, his size is at 266. He's a bit of a tweener, so he's a bit of a projection. He played end at USC, very highly productive. Love his tape, love his effort, love everything about the kid. But again, he's a projection. So again, like Aldo, if you're talking about a sure thing, I'm not sure, but yeah, dropping down from number 9, he must have gotten some future picks though. In future drafts. I'm assuming that's why he went that far on, because your first pick is pick 41. Right. So and Keon White, again, developmental player, a guy of converted tight end, just had one real big season at Georgia Tech last year, a 1-year wonder. Joe Tippmann is for me a gap power scheme center, a guy that the more you ask him to kind of maintain his blocks, that it gets more harder from there. So Isaiah McGuire, nice developmental guy. Israel Abedakanda, the running back from Pittsburgh, tailor-made for the zone scheme. Good potential there as well. Moro Ojimo, good defensive tackle, rotational guy, but again, a guy that didn't really hasn't produced much, at college. But I like the upside there with him. Josh Wiley, I know a lot of people like him, but he's like a tweener. Some have him as a fullback that I've talked to, more of like that H-back kind of role. And Dylan Horn, I know he's a guy that really came on. I think, that Michigan game where he had 4 sacks, I think that's going to probably get him drafted. But man, I watched him at TCU and it's just another guy that just doesn't really, give him, he's not athletic enough to stand up on his feet and be an outside linebacker, not stout enough to be an edge rusher. It doesn't have the bend to be, a guy that consistently comes off the edge for me. So, yeah, I mean, of all these guys, the guys I really, really like is Tuli. But again, dropping off out of number 9, I'm curious what he got for future picks in order to do that.
Yeah, I just asked him.
What for real quick, like you use your thumbs and your fingers and stuff. Tell us like real quick what thing you used.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, because I love the graphic layout of the results of that. But also some of these services are, well, I won't say they're better than one another. Some are more robust in terms of things that you can do.
At least one didn't ask me to pay or register,
Yeah. Yes.
I was looking for all these different services to use. Crop version. No, J2K. What service did you use? A lot of these services ask me to like register or to pay like $6.99 just to be able to the NFL mock draft database. That was actually one I did not try to get onto.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just give me the damn function on the website. Like, why do I have to give you my date of birth and blood sample just to be able to use a function of the website? I don't understand this, but
It's capitalism, brother.
no,
They
I
want,
mean, I
they
get
want to
that.
sell
But
your
you don't
info.
get a nickel dime us at the same time. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
But
What do you guys think about DJ Turner at number 64? Because I like that pick a lot. I've debated in a couple of mocks that I've done as to whether 64 is too high for him, but I love the speed. I love the coverage ability. He's a little bit undersized, and I know that with slot cornerbacks, a lot of defenses are going to a little bigger guys because they're putting big guys in the slot to combat those little guys that they have as slot corners. What do you guys think about it? What do you think, Neil?
I mean, his ability to move, his lateral explosiveness. Obviously, he ran one of the fastest 40s in the history of the combine. Not that I take the underwear Olympics, for anything more than a grain of salt, but I mean, it just proves, that the dude can absolutely freaking roll. He's a really interesting kid, but again, like you said, Aldo, there's a lot of guys on this list that would be nice to have, but you don't know if they're going to end up being dudes. You know what I mean? Like DJ Turner, 1000%, stick him in the slot right away, put Kyler Gordon out on the island, and that's probably the way you roll going forward. You're probably not going to have 22 again back next year, based on the rumors. Again, lying season. You know if that's true or not, but there's a couple guys that are floating around out there. There's guys that may not be back. One on the offensive line, one in the corner. Kendall Vildor probably not going to be back next year if those rumors are true. So you got to bolster up that cornerback room. And DJ Turner would be a way I'd go. Another way I'd go would be taking Julius Brents around that area. I'd take the Darius Rush kid around that area. Maybe the Jartavius Martin kid, overdraft him a little bit around that area. Guys that will come in and make an impact right away probably as well. And with Rush, we saw it at Senior Bowl, how he was able to pretty much mirror route runners, in drills and also in team action. He's a guy that could probably play, both slot and on the island. So he's an interesting kid. Not saying he can for certain, but he's just an interesting kid that way in what he's able to do. Fast, has great agility times, really good explosion numbers. Julius Brents is a guy that probably he's probably an island guy, but also could be a guy, depending on what happens, in the deep half there with Eddie Jackson, could be a guy that could fill that spot going forward as well. So really interesting things that you can do with that potential DB spot there in the tail end of the second, very early end of the third, depending on where we actually land with, trades and other things that may happen.
Now, this makes sense. J2K says that the graphic is clipped, and so we're not seeing who he took at 11. He traded 9 for Tennessee's 11th and 41st. Okay,
Wow.
So he's got Paris Johnson, Keon White. Now, see, all of a sudden, now the complexion of this draft goes from a B- to A-, maybe.
Because he's got a starter in Paris. He's got a kid in Keon White, where obviously the potential, you drafting potential there, drafting size. The kid's athletic for a man that big. Again, he's another guy that was misplayed, played at end. I think he could possibly kick inside to a 3 technique, possibly even 1 technique, depending on how much bigger it gets. But right now his famed claim to fame right now is his run defense. He's a pretty good run defender in there. Not much of a pass rusher. So yeah, I mean, but you get a guy like Paris Johnson. So I can see where I went there. I wouldn't have gone that high with Keon White just because I think there's some others that possibly give you a little bit more potential in terms of pass rush. But again, we don't know who was available. He might have been best available on the board at the time at 41. So,
and we're also playing the system too.
Right.
We're looking at in terms of relativity. I think both you and I, Danny, we use the same one, right? The PFN.
Well, I tried. I did use that. I used PFF, but I mean, I just tried to be, because I went through like.
Oh, you paid the $6.99, didn't you?
No, I did not. I hate doing these mock drafts, but just for to be out there. But I did like 27 of these things, man, because they were just so unrealistic. Some of these things like they're whenever the third pick they gave Arizona Christian Gonzalez, I stopped and restarted all over again. I was like, that happened like so many times. It's like, there were mocks where Tyree Wilson was sitting there for me and Jalen Carter are sitting there for me. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen.
I had one where all four that we were talking about last week were right there for me at 9.
Yeah,
Carter,
it just
Wilson,
again,
Johnson, and Jones. All four were right there sitting, and I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah, 2 weeks from tonight, Thursday night, first round is going to be crazy because there's a lot of guys that are being mocked in these first rounds that are probably not going to go in these first rounds. There's guys that are not mocked in these first rounds that are going to be going in the first round. So remember that a couple of years ago, was that 3 years ago, where the Alex Leatherwood pick was made, and everyone's like, we can have a couple of those moments this year as well in the first round. So that first night, guys, tune in because we'll have some reaction, I'm sure, as some of these picks come in. But yeah, it's just I did like 27. I swear 27, maybe 30 of these mocks just to get something more realistic. That's guys that are available. If it didn't go 1-2 with quarterbacks, I kind of stopped it. But if it went 1 quarterback, 2 defensive player, then I kind of let it go on. But I just try to make it more realistic. And
that's the point. Like you're doing these, and you're kind of gaming the system a little bit because you're seeing where these players go within the confines of the kind of AI that's set up within these different, websites that you're going to doing these mock drafts, and none of it's realistic. But you're also trying to game the system and figure out the best combinations of players that you could possibly get within the realm of where you can get them. I did like 347 today, and try to come up with something that was remotely realistic, and it was really hard. But I think we got some fun stuff to talk about.
If you can put J2K's mock back up there, Aldo.
Sure can.
Look at it one more time. The one thing I do want to give him credit for, J2K, you're a man behind my heart there, because you went where I went when I went defense and offensive line, man. You attack the trenches,
Exactly.
So I do appreciate that. His first three picks are all defense and offensive linemen. He's got another defensive lineman going in
four picks. Paris, Keon, Thule, Joe. Those are 4 picks on the trenches. And then
also he's got Ojimoni, then got Dylan Horton also on defense. So at least he went defense and offensive line majority. So I do give him props for that.
Yep, totally agree. We just got one submitted in from J-Rock. He's got Paris Johnson at number 9, number 53, Felix and Anduki Uzoma, wow, this looks familiar to somebody I know. Number 61, Julius Brents, and number 64, Joe Tippmann. Again, I don't think Tippmann came in for a visit to Hallis Hall, but I think it's because he's within that radius that allows for visits that don't count, and so they were doing due diligence. I don't see him as a scheme fit, but you never know, as Greg Gabriel says.
That's perfect. That's the thing about Tippmann. I mean, I like him for a power gap scheme. He's a physical guy at the line of scrimmage, but like I said, lateral quickness is not his strength, and asking him to elevate. There are times where he just couldn't reach his second level linebacker when he was asked to elevate. So I don't think he's a scheme fit. But I also saw that the Bears brought in DeJuan Jones from Ohio State, which that's something I was like, really? I don't know what that was all about, but who knows?
I don't know, man. This is perplexing, but that's a good draft there, J-Rock. Not bad at all. Okay, let's get to let's start with Danny's. And again, Danny put on his Trader Danny hat on and immediately started the draft with the trade. Trader Dan. Eagles receiving the Bears 9th, and in return, the Bears got their Eagles 10th and 62nd. Then the Bears trade that 10th to the New York Jets for number 13 and number 43. And with that 13th pick of the NFL draft, Danny Shimon selects Peter Skoronski. I thought you were going to say it, Danny.
I wasn't sure where we're going there, but yeah. So what happened here, guys, was at number 9. I was sitting there. The guys I wanted: Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, Paris Johnson. Believe it or not, they're all gone. So then I was looking at Broderick Jones and Skoronski and maybe Miles Murphy, and then I got my phone rang, and it was the Eagles. They wanted to move up one spot and were willing to give me pick 62 for it, which is a low end second round pick. I'm like, you know what, one spot, fine, because I figure I'll at least get an offensive lineman here, if not. So then I went down to 10, and then as I was ready to make the Broderick Jones pick, I got a call from Joe Douglas, and he said, "Listen, I got Aaron Rodgers coming. I need a tackle. I need your pick." And he ended up giving me, I believe, pick 58, if I'm not mistaken. There, pick 43, which is in that high second round range. And the one thing that I did notice, if not making these trades, if you sit from 9 and you wait till 51 for your next pick, or 53, whatever it is, it's a long ass wait, and a lot of players are going. So that's why I'm pretty convinced that Ryan Poles is going to try and trade down. And he's going to try and recoup something in that middle, because that's a long ass way. You have a lot of players just kind of going off the board there as you wait for the drop down to you. So anyway, I made these 2 trades, and the best available player, I was looking at either Peter Skoronski or going with a guy like, another, I think a defensive player was out there, but, or Darnell Wright actually came up to my mind as well as another guy, a pure right tackle with fill need. Doesn't have the length I like in my tackles. While he's a good athlete, he's a straight line athlete, his lateral agility wasn't what I wanted. I saw a lot of waist bending on his tape. I know he plays mean, he plays nasty, which I do like about him. But I ended up going with Skoronski, and I know he's going to be my left guard. But I just figured, you know what? They brought in Nate Davis to play right guard. They've kind of already said that. They've thrown Tevin Jenkins out, saying possibility at left guard. To me, that signals that they're not really gonna sit there and wait for Tevin Jenkins, because they can't rely on him. So I think you bring in a guy like Skoronski who plug in at left tackle, be a plug and play guy. I'm sorry, left guard, be a plug and play guy next to Braxton Jones. You have to solidify your left side of the offensive line, and now you have the right side to take care of in terms of right tackle. Whether you're going to have Tevin Jenkins out there battling with a Leatherwood, or you're going to go ahead and get a veteran after the draft, or maybe pick one up, another right tackle prospect in this draft. So that's the area that I would then concentrating after making this pick. But at least I've secured the left side of my offensive line with this pick, and a guy that's, if he's going to be, if not all pro, he's going to be a Pro Bowl player, a couple of times at least in his career with Skoronski.
Neil, what do you think about this? I frankly, I have not given it a lot of thought to drafting Skoronski because there's depth right now in the middle of the line, and there's a bigger need at that right tackle position. But Danny seems to me, he's making some sense in terms of solidifying the left side of the line. But it does also appear that you still now have a lot of work to do because you still have to find your right tackle, which I was hoping to land in the first round. Your thoughts, Neil?
I did have Peter Skoronski in one of my 587 draft mocks that I made up today.
I thought it was 327. It just went up.
Do what?
I thought it was 327. It just went up to 500. You did 200 while I was talking.
He's been drafting day and night.
Keep paying attention. There were certain situations that came up to where it didn't make a lot of sense, based on how the runs on certain positions were going, especially early. And also once you get in sort of that middle first round area, which sort of to me felt like a little bit of a no man's land. If you're forced to take a guy there, I'm going to go ahead and probably take the best, tackle and or inside offensive lineman available, interior offensive lineman available. And Skoronski made, a decent amount of sense in about 3 of those 625 that I did today. Think about it is like, I agree with Danny a lot in the sense that Skoronski is going to be your long-term guy. These other guys that we have are not going to be your long-term guys. Yeah. The guy that we brought in, Nate Davis. He's going to fill the need for, the time being. But I mean, if you're planning for the long run, that guy is probably eventually going to move to the right side, and Peter Skoronski is going to be the left side guy. If Nate Davis, kicks around for the long term, that being said, I like the kid a lot. Like I said, a week ago, like I would be upset if we took him at 9, knowing that there's 4 other guys that are on the board that we have talked about at length, ad nauseum, rather, that are better fits for our immediate needs right now. And again, nothing against the kid, nothing against the player, nothing against the program, nothing against having that human being. But if you're in a situation where you're taking a pick at 9 and not in the middle of the first round, and you take Peter Skoronski over a guy like Broderick Jones or Paris Johnson or Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter's still there. We don't really know what's going on inside House Hall right now, what the thoughts and opinions are. But let's go ahead and assume that Jalen Carter checked all the boxes on his visit. You got 4 guys sitting right there. In theory, any one of those 4 guys that pop up, you might be making a decision between 2 of them, maybe 3 of them. I think there's a snowball's chance in hell you're deciding between all 4 of them, but taking Skoronski over any one of those guys, I think would be a bad move in the middle of the first round. Solid move, knowing that you have a long-term guy at left guard.
And then one thing, just to ask, answer a question at the chat. I took him. I am a proponent of arm length, and that's why Skoronski is being drafted to play left guard, not tackle. And to
Correct.
Neil's point, if he had the arm length, he would be a top 10 pick. But because I'm playing him at guard, he's not a tackle for me. That's why he's dropping down. And at least for me, that area 13 was a good play, a good area where I can get a starter that I know will be a plug and play starter for me. There are some defensive players off the top of my head. I can't remember. There's some corners where I thought about, but I'm like, I'm not going to go corner for again this time around. There's a ton of depth in corner. We can get some corners in the second, third round. We don't have to worry about getting this high with the corner. The other thing, it was defensive line, and there really wasn't a defensive line guy out there because besides Jalen Carter, there really isn't a defensive tackle that you want to just scream in terms of first round talent. So, it was the edge guys that I was thinking about. The Miles Murphys, the Tyree Wilsons. Those guys Andersons were all gone. So that's why I figured I'm gonna get a starter. It's gonna be a left guard. It's not a popular position. But when he's making Pro Bowls and you've solidified left side of your side for your right-handed quarterback, I think that's a huge get there for Poles if this scenario actually played out.
It's solid
comment
thinking.
Right there, Aldo. Not to overcut you or anything, but J-Rock's talking about DeJuan Jones with his adult weight. All that weight that he has on him right now is bullshit, baby, immature weight, and he's going to have to, shape up and become an adult and shave all that off and basically reconstruct his body composition for him to be functional in this league. He's not going to be playing at the current weight that he is right now. He's not going to be playing anywhere close to 400. If I could draw a sport parallel, Zion Williamson right now is not playing because he has a bunch of bullshit baby immature weight on his body and it's causing further injuries.
But,
DeJuan Jones had to dip out. What's that?
DeJuan Jones has like 18 baby weight on his body. That's how.
DeJuan Jones bowed out of the Senior Bowl early because he had a stupid injury that he probably would have been able to avoid had his conditioning and his nutrition and his general way he goes about things been on point. But it's not because he showed up to the Senior Bowl 30 pounds over freaking weight. So. That's going to be fixed, and that's not going to be the the weight that he plays at as long as he grows up. Just want to make that point.
Yeah, but he's 400, almost 400 pounds. I think he came in at 376 to combine. How much are you going to drop? 70 pounds? Are you going to drop 40 pounds off of him? What you going to do? He can't move athletically. And that's the thing. He's a good athlete if he lost some weight, but
for as big as he is, the dude can move, but he's got to drop a ton of weight for him to be able to be functional.
That's why, I'm not even sure why they even brought him in because he's obviously not. Someone made a good point. If you're not going to sign Orlando Brown, who could play right tackle for you, now again, he was animated. He was playing left tackle, Brown that is, and maybe that's why he wasn't a fit. But I was told before he's not a scheme fit. Orlando Brown's not a scheme fit. If he's not a scheme fit, I don't know how DeJuan Jones could be a scheme fit. But I digress. We'll move on.
Orlando Brown could have been potentially interesting at right tackle now.
Yeah, he'd be a good right tackle. I don't want him at left tackle though. And he was adamant.
Yeah, exactly. And especially not at that at that price tag either.
Right.
But we're talking about things that don't even matter right now.
Indeed. All right.
Don Burr in the chat.
Say that again.
Is Don Burr in the chat? I just saw Don put something up there.
Yes,
all right, Don, welcome. Yeah. Tyree Wilson will be the first defensive player taken. I agree. Probably going number 2 to the Texans is what I'm thinking right now. We'll see what happens.
Well, we'll talk about Tyree a little later because I got a story to share with you about that. But let us move on to Danny's second pick, the 43rd pick, second round. It is Felix Anudiki Uzoma, the defensive lineman from Kansas State. Danny, what do you like this guy?
Again, this is the pick I got back from the Jets for trading down. Felix Nduki Uzuma is a guy that, again, undersized, bit of a tweener, 6'3", 255, 33 plus inch arm length. So he doesn't have the measurements to be a down out defensive end. But he's got, that quickness off the edge, the bend I look for in my pass rushers. He's the 2022 Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He had 11 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks this past season. So coming off of an 11 sack season the year before. So, and he's a guy that, what I love about him, he's got 8 forced fumbles, guys. And the way he bends that corner, comes around, he's got the knack to be able to kind of reach out and knock the ball out of the quarterback's hand. So he's a guy that brings you pressure off the edge and has a neck. Again, just forget that football out. And I just think, edge, again, sacks is what we're talking about here. We're talking about a team that needs to get pressure on the quarterback. And from what was available on the board, he's a guy that was just sitting there screaming edge rusher and a guy that can come in and be an impact player, I feel, in his first year. Again, speed off the edge, bendability, doesn't have the ideal length that I look for, but you know what? He makes up for it. His tape is just phenomenal. And again, that added bonus of just being able to get that knack to get that football out of the quarterback's hand. Again, 8 forced fumbles in his career at Kansas State. I just couldn't pass him up.
What do you think about that, Neil?
Love it. Had that guy in a couple of different iterations of my 703 different mock drafts I did today. In the ones that we did, Felix, it was like Felix and Derek Hall and A Squared and Keon White and Will McDonald, and those all 5 of those guys generally were around the same, pickable area. And it was just a matter of, where within the certain iterations they fell. Love this kid a lot. I think he's a 100% absolute fit. I think we talked about him several times on this show. They said that he didn't have that great of a pro day, which I don't think that's anything to knock a kid, but the way that's coming out, it almost seems like somebody's trying to get him to drop a little bit,
Exactly.
Lying season, as you will. But that kid was one of the reasons why Kansas State was so damn good and beat TCU for the Big 12 title this year. So he's a freaking stud. Would love to have him.
All right. So then Danny comes back and he makes another trade.
I trade down 4 spots with Dallas and I get an extra pick and I go down to number 58 and I get my guy. And I told you earlier, I would be in any draft room. I'll be pounding the table for Tuli Tuipulotu. I love this guy's film. I love this guy's energy. The only thing it's his size. He's a tweener. He comes in at 200. I believe came in at 266. He's 6'3", 32 1/4 arm length. So for me, he played end. He played edge at USC. But when you put on his tape and you see when he slants and he has the ability to get skinny and get in between blockers and get into the backfield and make plays. The guy had 22 tackles for loss last year, 13.5 sacks. I mean, the tape, the production is there. The only thing not there is the measurables, is that size. And I always harken back to what Greg Gabriel told me in terms of Henry Melton. He was a guy who came to Texas as a running back. They made him a defensive end. The Bears drafted him. I believe he was around 250 something, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to misquote Greg there, but he was in that range in terms of Tuli, and they made him into a Pro Bowl defensive tackle. I think it was up to 280 something, maybe right around high 270s. And I think that's the same thing I see with Tuli, is just his ability to be able to be destructive or be very disruptive in the middle of that defensive line is what I see. I love about him. I love his bloodlines. His brother plays for the Eagles currently. His cousin is Huafanga, the safety from the 49ers. So this is a guy that on and off the field just brings it. And again, I'd be pounding the table for this kid. Any mock draft I do, if I can get a chance to get this kid on the roster, I would do it. I absolutely love this kid.
So you think he can make the transition to a 3-tech?
Yes. He's got the twitch. He's got the athletic ability. He's got the quickness. Like I said, the only drawback, again, is just the size, and even on run plays at USC, there are times you see him get washed out. But I think once you get a little bit more stronger, work on his technique and be able to kind of take on and stack and shed at a more consistent basis, I think he's a guy that can be a guy that won't kill you in terms of run defender, but definitely a guy that can penetrate, get upfield, get into those gaps, and create havoc into the backfield.
At 266 pounds, how much more weight does he need to add to get to that ideal 3-tech weight?
Ideally, I want him as close to 280 without taking away any of his quickness. So if he adds 10 pounds to his 276, whatever he feels comfortable with, because again, his twitch, his ability like get past the guard, his swim move. I mean, there's times they have him standing up like an elephant defender. Think of Jason Taylor back in the heyday, and all of a sudden the ball snapped and his timing is impeccable. He comes in with a swim move, and the guard and center have no idea what's going on. He gets right in between there. He's into the lap of the quarterback, basically taking the handoff from the quarterback. So, I mean, that's the type of quickness he's got. Just now, coach him up, get him stronger. Again, just getting into that backfield, make some plays. I think that's where this kid can shine. Any
thoughts on Tuli, Neil?
Love that kid, man. He's got that perfect kind of athletic ability to where you move him, a spot inside to 3-tech, and that dude should absolutely, cause a bunch of problems. The thing is, like he brings a lot of experience across all positions, on the defensive line. He played the 1 before. He's played the 7. He's been as heavy as like I think 296 pounds, and he weighed in the combine at 266. He's got some twitch. He's got explosiveness. He's naturally strong. Has excellent play strength. You can see him torquing guys at the line of scrimmage, both on the inside and the outside. And again, like Danny said, great instincts, great timing on the ball. Love that kid. I think that, like Danny said, if you get another 10 to 15 pounds in that kid, now you're really kind of cooking with gas, I think, for 3-technique type dude.
Very good. All right, so now we move to 3-4 picks later, and Danny chooses the kid from Wisconsin, Keanu Benton. Tell us why, Danny.
Yeah, Keanu Benton, originally when I scouted this kid's tape, I'm thinking, this guy would be a perfect one technique in the system. He's a guy that's a beast in terms of the run defender. A guy that can occupy blockers. Again, at Wisconsin, he was two-gapping a lot. He was just taking on blockers. First, his stats won't jump out at you. He had only 4.5 sacks last year, 9 for his career. So he's not a guy at Wisconsin that really brought that pressure. He was known more for just being a solid, really good run defender. But man, we went down to the Senior Bowl, and this kid was quick at those one-on-ones. His guys showed ability to get up into the backfield, and you saw some upfield potential there. And now I'm just saying, worst case scenario is a one technique, a guy that can come in and be a permanent replacement. I know they signed Andrew Billings to a 1-year deal. Come on, that's just a stopgap veteran. This is a guy that can be a one technique and be a run stopper for you. If not, a guy that can also, you can probably utilize him. If what I saw at the Senior Bowl translates over to the next level, he's a guy that can also get back into the backfield and create plays. I think this guy's going to have a better career in the NFL than he had at Wisconsin. And already he was a damn good run defender. I think he's going to be a potential to be a run defender and a guy that can bring some pressure. Even if he doesn't become the guy that gets consistently into the gaps and into the backfield, a guy that can bull rush the center and walk him back into the lap of the quarterback. And again, just thinking about the future of this team here with my 3 picks here, I got an edge rusher, I got a 3 technique, and I got a 1 technique. And again, I'm putting where my money where my mouth, my mouth is. I'm saying I want defense and offensive linemen, and that's what I'm attacking here. And I think I've gotten potentially 3 starters here with these last 3 picks.
Nice. You like that pick, Neil?
Yeah. We talked about him before as well. Late bloomer, kid. His best film, came towards the end of the year. Showed up really well at the Senior Bowl. Great size, great explosiveness, great twitch. Strong as hell. Kind of in the same way of A Squared a little bit. He's a guy that's not going to blow you away with his college film, but you start putting him in drills, you start putting him in situations to where he can actually excel and use the traits that he has to get home. You start falling in love with this kid a little bit more. I would love to have that kid in Chicago. Absolutely.
All right. So we move now to which pick you got? Oh, number 62. Now you're going cornerback. You feel comfortable digging a quarterback out at 62?
Yeah. Just looking at my board. Like I said, I feel like I've got 4 potential starters. I got a starting left guard. I've got an edge rusher. I've got a 3 technique, and I got a 1 technique here. Now I'm thinking, all right, we need a nickel back. See, you guys, or not you guys, but a lot of people are saying the Bears need corners, and I agree. But I think for me, Kyler Gordon, I scouted him last year as an outside corner. I know they moved him inside. I know some people want to give him another shot inside. I think he is best on the outside. So I think with Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon on the outside, we need a nickel corner. And this is where this kid, Clark Phillips from Utah, comes in here. Obviously, the size is going to be the biggest drawback. 5'9", 184 pounds, sub 30-inch arms. But the kid, if you put on his tape, first of all, the guy's a ball hawk. I mean, this guy's has had 21 pass defense in his career, 9 interceptions, 6 last year. Okay. He was the 2020 Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He's gotten 4 touchdowns. So he's gotten 4 pick sixes already. So he's a guy who, when he gets the football, he knows what to do with it. Again, I'm kicking him inside to the slot. I like his athletic ability. I like his feet. I like his hips. They're loose. Opens up his gate easily, turns it, and can stay in phase with a receiver. He's tough. That coach down there in Utah, these Utah players come to NFL tough, ready-made, aggressive football players. And he's a guy that, while he's only 5'8", sub 190 in terms of weight, he's not a guy that backs down from anybody. You see him going in there and trying to make a tackle and not back down from anyone. So I love the athleticism. I love the coverage ability. He plays good man off coverage as well. A guy that's smooth in his transition, be able to plant his feet and come forward. Everything you like in this system for a guy that kick inside to be a nickel corner. So I think that the value there for him was way high. And I love the ball skills. I love the guy that can pick the ball off and then take it back the distance. So 4 pick sixes in his career. I think his coaching staff wants to see this kid and what he does in terms of getting his hands on the ball production. I think they're going to love him as well. So I think I got another starter here as my nickel corner with Clark Phillips.
Gotta like the pick, right, Neil?
Yeah, I love Clark Phillips. And, Cliff Victoria, that chat that you put up there reiterated one of the points that we made. It was at the last show, the show before, about how, Ryan Poles was talking about one of the first press conferences as we were going into the offseason about the type of positions that he was going to prioritize, the special positions that need to be addressed, and were actually premier positions in his eyes, and different types of things that we needed to address this offseason. Across the offensive defensive line were one of those areas, and corner was another. And the fact that we did not address cornerback in free agency indicated to me that we were going to go ahead and address that in the draft. And that nickel spot has been a bitch for us for the past, God knows how long. It's just been a revolving door trying to find guys to play the nickel position. And I love his kid, Clark Phillips.
It's been ever since Bryce Callahan left. It's been a bad.
Yeah, this Clark Phillips kid. It's what I call a spider. He's got multiple agility. You feel like he could be in 5 different places at once. The way that kid moves laterally, his quickness, his ability to transition, his hips, how fluid they are, typewriter feet. I mean, I love everything about this kid. And if we can go ahead and throw that kid in our nickel slot right now, I think we'll be in good shape.
All right, very good. So I think we got another trade coming up for Danny. It is the Bears receiving the 66th pick from the Arizona Cardinals plus a 4th rounder in 2024 in exchange for the Bears 64 and 218. So in essence, the Bears are moving back down 2 spots and giving up their 218th pick for the Cardinals, 4th round pick next year. And with that pick, Danny selects Marvin Mims. Tell us why, Danny.
This is a receiver that if you guys are Patreon customers, you guys have seen my scouting report on this kid. I absolutely love this kid. He's one of these sleeping diamond guys, and the guys that you could go in day 3 of this draft, possibly late day 2, like here the scenario, and then 3 years from now you're gonna be like, damn, how did this kid last this long? So 5'11", 183, 4.38 speed, 155 10-yard split, 39.5, almost a 40-inch vertical, 6'9", 3 cones. He's got the shiftiness. He's got the big playability. This is a guy that gives you that ability to get down the field, to stretch the field. Now, again, receiver for me right now might be a luxury pick here this early, but I think with the maneuvers I made, and I think, again, I'm not saying Ryan Poles is going to have this many picks in the first 3 days or first couple of days, but I do anticipate him making some trades, moving back, recouping some of that collateral he lost there. So I think a receiver could be an option here for him as well. Because remember, we have Claypool and Mooney both coming into their final seasons in terms of their contracts. Chances are they'll sign one, not both, right? So you need someone a young player in the pipeline, and I think Marvin Mims gives you what they've been looking for. They're looking for a guy that creates separation, whether it's vertically or horizontally, a guy you can get the ball in his hands on slip screens, bubble screens, any of these, quick playing, quick hits. And I think this is a guy that can get, make something happen with the football in his hands as well. So also gives you some punt return ability as well, and some kickoff return experience as well. So it gives you some of that added bonus. So if he doesn't come in and contribute right away on offense, he's a guy that could potentially be a punt returner. And we saw last year how Velus Jones was at punt returns. Until the end of the year, it was number 18, the receiver that's not going to be. I forgot his name, guys. 18, the receiver last year for the Bears, number 18. Punt returner. Oh, Dante Pettis.
Pettis,
was
yeah.
The punt returner. He's probably going to be gone. So, Velus Jones probably doing kickoff return. So you need a punt returner. I think this is where this kid comes in, fills in. So you have potential there of a guy that come in and give you some big plays on offense and specialized, design plays, and also a guy that can be a punt returner potentially in special teams. So that's why here I pull the trigger on a kid like Marvin Mims Jr., a guy that'll bring, again, big play potential to offense.
Yep.
Thoughts on Mims, Neil?
Yeah. I was going to say, that's a guy that can come in and immediately give you some help on special teams. Another position that's kind of been a revolving door for us. If you can find a guy that can hold down the return game, you're in good shape. Flip the field, find some guys that can score touchdowns, house it, whenever they get the rock in their hands. Kid's got a lot of electricity about him.
All right, J2K loves Mims too. So let us move on with Danny's draft. This is a 3-round draft, so we are on pick 67 for Danny. No,
taking about as long as first rounds of the draft would typically take. Here we go.
Exactly. So with this final pick,
I've done a great deal, and Herm's helping this team right now. All right, I'm telling you right now, this team is looking better.
If you can pull off these trades, then yes, I would agree. At number 90, the kid out of Pitt, offensive lineman Carter Warren. A lot of people in love with this guy as a mid-round draft pick. Tell us why, Danny.
Right. So Neil, agree with me. The last couple of years, if you want tough football players, you go to Utah and you go to Pitt. And that's where you get tough football players. And Carter Warren is a guy, 6'5.5", 311, 35+ inch arm length. A guy that's played as a 4-year starter, a left tackle, started 39 of 40 games. So he's got that experience. He's got the length you're looking for. He's got the quickness. The only thing for me is I'm going to kick him over to the right side. And you say, oh, well, he started 4 years at left tackle. Yeah, but there are times where they did the heavy load and they moved him over to right tackle and basically in the middle of the game, and he was like an extra tight end and stood there and protected, pass blocked, and at the right side as well. So didn't seem to bother him at all. So I think this is a guy that can come in and flip over and be your right tackle, potentially come in, like I said earlier, battle for a chance to start at right tackle with whether it's Tevin Jenkins, Alex Leatherwood, or if it's a veteran free agent to be named later. They went with a rookie left tackle last year out of Southern Utah. I don't see why they wouldn't go with a rookie right tackle this year out of a Power 5 conference. Again, it's got the size, got the length, got the foot quickness. He's actually a better pass blocker than a run blocker for me right now. So I think that's an area where he's another guy that's going to have to get stronger in terms of his core strength and just be better at moving people at the line of scrimmage. But in terms of pass blocking, I think, love his long arms, love the way he strikes and he uses his arms in pass pro. And again, he's got the lateral agility to be able to slide and protect and mirror and pass protection. And I think this guy comes in and can compete, could win that starting right tackle job, depending, again, who he's going to be going up against. So I feel very good about having this kid come in and I see compete for that right tackle spot.
Carter Warren, Neil, you in love with him too?
Yeah, that's actually a guy that I need to do more work on. But I 1,000% agree with you. I don't know how many times I've said on the show that, if I want toughness, I'm going to go to Pitt. I'm going to go to Utah. I'm going to go to San Diego State. Programs like that, it's in their blood, to have those different types of guys. So
Temple is another one there too. Temple tough.
Yeah, well, one specific coach, came up with that, and it left in a year and like 6 months. So, I guess.
All right, let's turn over to Neil's mock now. Again, as Neil said, he sent me.
Now you guys know why I wear Superman shirt, because I think I did a super job in getting this Bears team back on the right track here.
You took up a super amount of time too.
Yeah, I had a lot of trades. I was busy. My phone was ringing. I had 2 phones going at the same time.
4 trades, 2 phones. That's not a bad combination. All right, Neil sent me a bunch of drafts. I picked one, but he can comment on any of the other ones. Let's start with the one where you picked Paris Johnson at number 9. Neil, take it away.
Okay, so we're going with that one of my 816 drafts. All right, yeah, but I mean, listen, again, going back to what I said last week, there are 4 guys I could see us picking at that number 9 spot. And it's Paris Johnson, it's Broderick Jones, it's Tyree Wilson, or it's Jalen Carter. Again, if we feel good about, the kind of impression that he made in the meeting room during his visit, the kind of questions that he answered, the how upfront and honest he was about situations, and really, when it comes down to, is this kid full of shit or not, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because the kid can play. It's just you don't like the optics of everything that happened at his pro day. And the combine ended up being a mess because all the legal stuff popped up right when combine week was, and let's not pretend like everything that happened the night of the championship game was all sunshine and rainbows either. Just gonna be swept under a rug. I mean, that's kind of serious stuff that's going on. It's labeled a misdemeanor, but there's a lot more on top of that throws up red flags. So that all needs to be considered. Paris Johnson has the best combination of, I think, everything you want to be one of your bookend, tackles going forward. We talked last week about the opportunity that Ryan Poles would now have, bringing a kid like Paris Johnson with the size at 6'6", 313, with the length at just over 36-inch arms, and the kind of athleticism that he has, the versatility that he has, playing up both sides of the line, playing guard, playing on the outside. Poles has the opportunity to go ahead and figure out the best possible combination of tackles between, Braxton and Paris. However, he wants to play those 2 particular human beings on his offensive line. What's best for the scheme? What's best for Justin Fields? I don't know how many straight weeks we've been saying that this is the way we should probably go with number 9 if Tyree Wilson isn't available. But this is where I went. If the guy was there, I went ahead and picked Paris.
All right, you wouldn't have a problem with that, right, Danny?
No, I love Paris Johnson. I love the fact, the length, 6'6", 313, 36+ inch arm length. He's got the athletic ability. Another guy that needs to get stronger. Another guy that in the run game is not as dominant as he should be. It's a little bit consistent there, but I've got the athletic ability. Just curious, one question for Neil. In this mock, you had the pick of between Jalen Carter and Paris Johnson. You went with Paris Johnson, or Carter was already gone in this mock scenario?
I'm trying to remember exactly who was still available.
It's hard to remember when you do.
Just curious, because I mean, if that is something that I don't think Carter personally, I don't think Carter will be available for the Bears. But I'm saying if he is there, looking at Ryan Poles in the face, and Paris Johnson is there as well, I'd be hard pressed to bypass Jalen Carter. And I know there's a lot, and you're taking it could be a boom or bust pick, and it could blow up in your face, and you could look have egg on your face, but the fact that when this kid is on, you don't even go back to this last year. Go back to 2 years ago, last year. He was a freaking dude on that defensive line that had Jordan
Absolutely.
Davis and it had Trevon Walker and had all these other guys on there. So this guy is just so freaking dominant, and all it takes is just getting his head on straight. And if you get him, the potential to have a havoc-wreaking interior defensive presence in this defense is huge, especially with now the linebackers that you have behind them, and then the young developing secondary you have behind them as well, and you bring in some edge pressure guys off the edge as well. Talk about making a transformation. That is so damn tempting that you if you're Ryan Poles, and if he's there, again, I don't think he'll be there, but if he's there, I just can't see me passing him up, because that's how dominant he is in the trenches. And again, it could be power. It could be a swim move, or a rip move to get up into the gaps. I mean, he could do a lot of different things. And he can tilt and get skinny, get between blockers. I mean, he does everything you look for in this defensive front. It's just, and Perry Johnson will be a plug and play starter as well. So that's the thing, is like, if you're Ryan Poles and that scenario plays out to you, man, I would be hard pressed to pass Carter, because basically once you bypass Carter, the defensive tackle drop off is huge, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like you're really kind of potentially passing on a guy that could be a cornerstone of a defense. So I was just curious if that was the decision made.
Here's my concern about Jalen Carter. If he's there at 9, it's clearly because other teams have found out something about his background that they find disturbing. There's teams with defensive tackle needs. The Detroit Lions will grab him up in a moment if he falls to 6. But if he's there at 9, clearly they have found something that makes them uncomfortable, whether it's something to do with his personality, something to do with his work ethic, or maybe even something worse. I don't know, and I'd be speculating if I were to put anything up there, but if he falls to 9, I think that's a red flag. And at this point, you got to believe that the Chicago Bears have done due diligence, and whatever there might be in Jalen Carter's background, they know what it is. And so when they brought him in for their one-on-one interview, they're asking him questions. Usually those interviews begin with, hey, it's really, really important that you tell me the truth, because if you tell me a lie, then that's really going to hurt your chances to become a member of this great franchise. And so you are setting him up now to tell the truth on everything. And if you find out that he's been telling lies during that interview, then you scratch his name off the board and you move on. And even if he's there in the second round, you won't even go there, because you don't want that kind of a personality in this clubhouse. Ryan Poles has said it publicly before the owners meeting that this is a young locker room, and he's got to be very careful about who he brings into that locker room. Now, the hope is that, of course, he's a sterling young man, that he was involved in a couple of mistakes, that his poor performance in the bowl game had to do with the ankle injury he was suffering, and there were other circumstances and so forth. Hopefully that's the case. I'm not wishing any ill will on him. I'd love to see a great young defensive tackle in Jalen Carter come into the National Football League. But if he's there at 9, oh boy, that could be a problem.
That's where your sit down with him, your interview process with him, your fact-finding mission with him, that's where it comes into play. Mm-hmm. If you say, like you said, Aldo, like if they have any sort of feeling like he's lied or he's not telling the truth or he's someone that they can't trust, of course, you got to bypass him. But you can't just bypass him because Detroit bypassed him or Seattle bypassed him, because you don't know what their situation was, how his
totally agree. Totally,
that's where your information, your intel, your guys that you rely on, Ryan Poles, will will need to kind of tell you where to go. So just because those two teams pass on him and the Bears take him, I wouldn't just say there's something for sure wrong there. We'll have to let them see and explain why they felt comfortable taking the kid.
Yeah, you have to make the best choice for the information that you have at hand, your intuition, and what works best for what you have going on inside your own four walls. You can't ever draft according to what somebody else is doing in their personal draft room. Mm-hmm. That would be absurd. But also to kind of address some of these other comments, it wasn't that he just lost loved ones. It wasn't like his grandma died the night of the national championship game. The people in the opposite car that he was racing against ran into a fucking light pole and killed 2 people in the car. It was one of the recruiting girls and one of the teammates. All right. So it's not like he didn't have anything to do with that. He said he was a mile down the road when it happened. He left and came back to the scene of the accident. Les probably took some time to sober up, or whatever the case may be. To the point where they couldn't get an accurate blood alcohol level on him at the time of the accident. I mean, unless I have that story wrong, as I understand the story, it was 2 people from Georgia, two cars with Georgia either players or personnel inside, were racing down a road. One of them lost control and ran into a light post or a ditch or something and killed 2 people. Am I off on that? Or do I have that story?
Yeah, no, that's the story. He was racing, and then one car, which I believe was being driven by the female, the person that worked for the football team, not the player, and that car lost control, and then they hit a pole or whatnot and lost, and he just sped off from the scene. Saw the obviously I would assume he saw the accident and just took off, and then I guess he told cops that he wasn't around when it happened. So that was a lie there. But I mean, they've investigated it. It's been deemed a misdemeanor. You know, nothing else is coming out from there. Again, from what we know, and this is where again we talked about Ryan Poles and the Bears doing their due diligence on this player's background. That's where this stuff comes out at.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get back to Neil's draft. He has made a trade. He has traded up into the second round, higher up into the second round.
Gave up picks, dude?
Not in this draft.
Oh God! What did he give up, Aldo? What did he give up?
I don't know.
I can't remember what I gave up at this point. I can't remember. Or actually, no. Yeah, I traded. I traded second round.
Don't make something up now.
No. It was I swapped second rounds with Pittsburgh and gave them a second round next year.
Mm-hmm.
So you got back our pick that we traded for Claypool?
Effectively, yeah. Effectively.
Wow.
So 33.
What'd you pick?
And I believe I picked. Did I go A squared at 33? Is that what I did?
Yeah, that is what you did. Indeed. Number 33 is AA from Northwestern.
Yeah.
Could be a little early for some people's taste.
What's that?
Some people are saying that he might last to the third round. I mean, this guy's post college career has gone like a roller coaster. He's going to go in the first round one day, and then the next day I see he's going in the third round. But you got him at 33rd. Tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is in the way that this kid kept on going off the board, basically between 25 and about 35, 40. I figure if I wanted a kid that was unique, I would have to get him at that kind of like, really, prime spot of one of the first couple rounds or first picks of a second round. And so taking him at 33, I thought that was a quality pick. You get a guy with potential, first round value at, the first pick of second round. You don't have to pay him that extra, guaranteed money that you would owe a first round guy. And you get a guy that, has almost 34-inch arms, big old hands at 10.5, has some of the most unique, testing numbers in the history of the combine at 4.49 40, 1.61 10, 37.5 vert, 10.5 broad, repped out 27 on the bench at his pro day as well. And, he's just a unique dude. And kind of like we're talking about Keanu Benton, a dude that doesn't have the best tape. He's not going to jump off the screen when you watch his film. There's a couple games this year where I felt that the kid actually did some work playing out of position on the edge for Northwestern. But he's a guy that's going to kick inside all the way. And you saw what he did on one-on-ones and in team drills at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile. His ability to play in that gap and be an absolute beast, turn speed to power, beat guys consistently. It was hard to find a guy that can block that kid with the kind of explosion of power and speed and quickness that he has. A little bit of a projection, granted, and the reason why his postseason and pre-draft process has been all over the place is because teams are really just trying to figure out how to slot this kid as a kid that doesn't have the production on tape, doesn't necessarily have the stats. He showed up, in certain games, wasn't consistent, but also has this type of athletic ability, has these type of traits, this length, this explosion, this speed, this quickness, all these different types of things. So I think you could really go ahead and bet that this kid will be a round 2 pick. I think that's a really safe bet on that. And just to make sure that you get a guy that you can slot in at your 3 technique position without having too many question marks is the reason why you go with this kid at the top end of the second round. Now, in reality, is he a top end of second round kid? Who knows? I've felt that he could be anywhere from middle round 2, late round 2 to early round 3. I think those are kind of the money spots in reality. But again, a lot of these kids, a lot of times, will go ahead and test themselves, run themselves up the board when they have a kick-ass pre-draft process. And especially when you get this kid in the room, he's probably going to blow you away with his interview and what he does on the board, all those different types of things. His character, I'm sure it's off the charts, checks all the boxes as far as a human being goes. He'll go ahead and run himself up to where I'll bet somebody goes ahead and takes a chance on him at high round 2, low round 1. But I think for most people's boards, mid round 2 to early round 3 is realistically where he falls, in terms of consensus. Somebody will go ahead and take the chance high though. And we need a 3 technique. We need an inside presence. We need a guy to cause some problems. We, thought that there was a chance we can get Jalen Carter. As of right now, in this draft, the way that Jalen Carter, did his visit, the way that he came in, through in his visit, the way he came off, answered the questions, everything else. If I'm the GM, if I feel, even remotely, off about that whole situation, I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to go ahead and get a big dude early end of round 2. A Squared was there. Keon White is there. That's another guy that would slot right in that position as well. Now we talked about Tui Pelotu.
Let me ask both of you guys, do you have Adebawore ahead of or below Kalijah Kancey? Anyway.
I don't know if I have Kancey on my board at this point, just because I just don't know if he, fits the prototype that Poles wants.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked numerous times about how everybody wants to compare this kid to Aaron Donald, because he's, similar height and size and build, and came from Pittsburgh and all these different types of things. I'm sure he's a tough kid, and he had a phenomenal film, but that arm length difference does make a difference. And the reason why Aaron Donald is so productive is because he has damn near 33-inch arms. Kalijah Kancey's arms are like 30 and a half. That extra 2 inches matters, especially when you're going against, big physical dudes that can go ahead and gain leverage on you. So, thing about Kancey is, if he's there in tail end of round 3, round 4, we have picks and we've made some moves and we have the luxury of quantity of draft capital. Go ahead and take a chance. But I think if you're looking for somebody to be a fix, you go ahead and take a kid like A Squared. You take a kid like Keon White, Tui Pelotu. You don't take a kid that you're going to be asking questions about, that you don't know if it's going to be your long-term fix, in a place where you want to get guys to be fixes, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Penny, you got Kancey ahead of Double A?
I don't have him ahead of Double A because so Double A has the size, the length, the traits that you're looking for in a player, especially a 3 technique. Kancey has a better tape. Kancey's tape is 10 times better than Double A's. And the thing with Double A is and I'm a huge fan of Double A in terms of, I saw him and I'm like, all right, this guy's playing out of position. This guy's got some twitch. This guy can kick inside, and he came in at the combine with the size, and he went to Senior Bowl and showed the ability to be a disruptive guy on the inside. But again, it's a projection. And I understand when he was kicked inside a 3 technique, there was a little bit more pressure. I think his pressures are higher at 3 technique than they are when he kicked them outside to 5. But he's still a projection. He's a guy that just, watching him play, there wasn't the impact from him that I would, even if he's playing out of position, you expect some sort of impact from him. And that's where I'm kind of struggling with. I love the kid, love his size, perfect scheme fit at 3 technique, but I'm struggling there. And what in terms of Kancey, he's a guy, you love the tape, you love his quickness, you love his ability. He's the ideal fit in terms of 3 technique, but those arms are a big concern for me. And so it's kind of hard. Traits, I like Double A. Tape, I love Kancey. So, but in order of this pick for Neil, I don't like it. Now, if Double A dropped to you at 53 or 61, you took him, fine. You're taking that projection on developmental player, a guy that, like I said, fits the scheme, has the traits. But you gave up our 2nd round pick next year to get a guy that's with that tape, that's kind of a developmental project. That's where it kind of bothered me with this selection.
Yeah. Very good.
Well, thing is, I got a couple of different iterations of this where I was able to get dump pick and not lose 2nd round picks in Tui, Keon White, and Double A. It was hard to find these guys at 53. Those are 3 guys that I really liked, to bring in and slot in that 3 technique role, for the future. And so, there's another iteration of the 901 different mock drafts that I did that will be a little bit more interesting and maybe make you think higher of me, Danny. I know you're looking at me with all like I'm a scumbag.
No, but the one thing with Double A, I think he's a player that a lot of people are projecting in the 1st round. I think he's going to go lower, in my opinion. He's going to go lower than what these media guys.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
realistically speaking, he's like, I think the highest that he ends up going is probably like mid round 2. Somebody might take a chance on him, but I think realistically speaking, he's a mid round 2 to early round 3 guy.
Right. He's a guy a team that's got the luxury of either a lot of picks or they have, they just want to take a chance on that trait, it could bring him in. But again, I think all these mocks him going in the 20s, or I find it hard to believe because you see they all watch the same tape we watch, and again, I understand it's a projection, development of player play out of position, but it's just I think he goes lower than what a lot of these TV mock guys are putting him in there for. So, but yeah,
let's assume I got him at 43 because that's what I was trying, or 53, I should say. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, that's the thing is I wouldn't that second round pick next year, second round pick giving up for him. That kind of stings at the heart,
All righty, moving on with Neil's draft. Let's see, what do you got coming up here, amigo? You have got a center, and he's from Minnesota with pick number 53. John Michael Schmitz. Tell me why you love him.
So part of the thought process in this particular, draft mock was taking into consideration the idea that Cody Whitehair is obviously not your fix at center, and that there's a decent chance, as the tea leaves are reading right now, that he may not be even on the roster post-draft. All right, so that means that you have a massive hole at the center of your offensive line in the leadership position where you need somebody to come in and be your solution for the X number of years going forward. John Michael Schmitz is a guy that has incredible play history, 4 years as a starter, team leader, team captain, local kid from Homewood Flossmoor. And he may not blow you away with his measurables. He may not blow you away with his tape. He's not exactly a sexy pick, but what he is absurdly consistent. He's physical. He's strong. He can operate at the second level when need be. But mainly, he's going to get the job done in a phone booth inside there. And, he's a really interesting kid that I've liked ever since I first started learning about him in the pre-draft process. He had a really great week in Mobile. And again, like he didn't necessarily jump off the charts, testing or anything like that at the combine. But, there's a lot to be said for, technical consistency with a kid like that has that kind of that kind of leadership, the intangibles, all those different types of things. I think it gets physical and mean as hell. And that's why I went ahead and took him at 53, assuming that we're not going to have a solution at center going forward.
Boza said that he likes drafting guys. He likes guys on the team who are from the area because they got a special love for Chicago and wanted to do well for Chicago. John Michael Schmitz, I believe he's from Barrington, Chicago suburb, just north. Homewood Flossmoor. Thank you. Who's from Barrington? There's a draftee who's from Barrington. In any case, I like the pick. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like the pick as well in terms of the player. I like the player. A guy who's lettered in wrestling. So ever see an offensive lineman that knows has a wrestling background. They know leverage and how to use their hands to be able to create. Not the most athletically gifted center out there. So, but I think he's good enough in terms of he's a guy that will. Will himself to go out and flip those hips and get him into the gap to be able to kind of cut off that backside pursuit on an inside zone run or something like that. So he's a guy, definitely a guy who can be a leader on your interior offensive line. So the only thing is, and Neil, you may have touched on this already. You said that you've heard that Cody Whitehair may not be on the team after the draft. So that was my first concern was we took a player at 53 where we know that this team is in need of starters where potentially he's not going to start for a year. That was my only kind of drawback saying, I like the player, but I'm like, is he going to sit on the bench and back up Whitehair? But I haven't heard the rumors about Whitehair not being on his team. So that was curious to hear. So that does happen. And this pick is made. That makes a little more sense then.
Mm-hmm.
It's recently popped up in the past, probably like 48 hours that smoke started billowing, around all the media people. But again, lying season. There's so many different scenarios that I started thinking about this. That you gotta plan for a bunch of different things.
One thing I want to know is, do you draft a player outside the Big Ten? I'm just curious.
Do what?
Are you going to draft a player outside the Big Ten in this mock draft of yours? I'm just curious.
Yeah, in one of the 947 that I have, I certainly drafted players.
Yeah, but you have an all Big Ten, all SEC mock, or how are you doing this?
I did do an all Big Man mock. I did an all Fly Guy mock. I did a Noah's Ark mock, 2 of everything.
There you go.
So it was good.
Love it. All right, with pick 64, Neil's on the clock, and he selects the edge from Auburn. I know Danny likes this guy, Derek Hall.
Yeah, absolutely. This kid is kind of unique to me. 6'3", 254, great arm length at 34 and a half, big hands at 10, tested really well, 4.55 40, 1.59 split at the combine. Explosion numbers were at 33 and a half on the vert, 10.7 on the broad, did 26 reps on the bench. He's quick and explosive off the edge. Those long arms can create separation easily. He's got really good hip twitch. He's got really good play strength. He can set the edge. He can he can kind of wreck things. Coming off the corner. He's a wrecking ball when it comes to his closing speed on the quarterback. For a guy that I did not do a whole lot of work on, leading up to this week's show, and did a little bit more work on, I kind of fell in love with him just a little bit more over the past few days here. And again, he's a guy that in all these different iterations of this draft, he ended up going somewhere in between 40 and 60 consistently every time we did this. If he was still around, in fact, or around 53, 61, that was a rarity. But I mean, this kid is explosive, quick, fast. A lot of the things that you look for. I think he was team captain as well, so he's got the intangible things going for him. Really good locker room guy. In terms of those off the field things that Poles says that are extremely important in the way that he builds this franchise, he's got a lot of those things too. So I felt that was a really solid pick at what was this at 61, 63?
64.
64? Yeah, I have no idea.
Yep.
At this point.
64.
Yeah, so yeah, no, he's and again, you're talking about a dude too that in high school he was a linebacker. He has transitioned into an outside edge rusher, and then he will also transition in this defense, obviously, to putting his hand in the dirt. So again, it's a slight bit of a projection, but I think first pick of the third round, getting a kid like this, I think that's a slam dunk.
Yeah, I absolutely love this kid. If this guy is there at 64, that is a slam dunk pick. And again, I'm with you in terms of I saw him play in terms of the SEC games at Auburn, and yeah, he'd make a play here and there, but I never really appreciated what he did until I broke down his tape. And he first caught my eye at the Senior Bowl in terms of that week of practice. He was the defensive practice player of the week, and then I get more into his tape. And J2K made a point there in terms of, he's a guy that's he's a long-legged guy, his short torso. But yeah, that's true. But he's a guy that is strong at the point of contact. J2K. He's a guy that only 254 pounds, but he's got really just that brute strength. And the way he sets the edge, it's really, when I say he's unappreciated, the way he just kind of throws his body into multiple blockers to be able to hold his point, hold his ground, and set that edge, funnel everything back into his defensive line mates. It's something that you won't appreciate unless you break this guy's this tape down. And again, the build is not ideal for an edge guy in this defense. But again, he's so strong, and he doesn't have the bend that I want in my edge rushers, like the bend I talked about with Uzomah. He doesn't have that kind of bend. But what he does is he's got that thing where he'd rather go through a blocker than go around the blocker. And that's how he's got the long arms to be able to press and get them off his torso and then just to walk them back. And there's times where I've seen him where he pressed the guy and has a nice job of just dipping his shoulder underneath their arms and then now using his his explosiveness that he timed out at the combine. You see that closing burst to be able to get underneath the pad level and then out close and flatten to the quarterback. And that's where he made his presence felt. So yeah, not the ideal fit, not the ideal bend that you want off the edge rusher, but man, you watch his kid's tape and he works hard and he was a team captain, well respected. And again, the more I watched him, the more I grew an appreciation to what kind of football player this guy is. And I believe a lot of coaches are going to watch his tape and are going to mark him higher than he, a lot of people are saying he's going to go, mid-late second round. I think he's going to be right in that top of the second round range because some teams, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes, till end of the first round, because of the way he plays, again, the way he utilizes his body, the way he sacrifices his body. And he just, he's a run defender and a guy that rather go through a blocker than around the blocker and get to the quarterback, makes his presence felt on defense. And I definitely like this kid a lot.
Good stuff. All right, I'm going to give you my 3-round mock. It's pretty simple. I used the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator, and I did begin things with a trade. It's no surprise. Most Bears fans want to trade down, and I worked out a deal with the Houston Texans where I'm trading the 9th and 64th picks to for the 12th and 33rd and 144th pick. The key here for me being getting back into the early part of round 2 so that I can pick a pass rusher. Now, one of the cool things about the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator is that you can make some adjustments on some of the parameters that they will then, use for the picks that are available. And so I hiked up the randomness, which to me, in just about every draft that I've ever seen in my 60 years on this planet, I've seen so many surprises in the draft. And so oddly enough, some surprises came up in my draft, but I went with a name that everybody knows, Paris Johnson with the 12th pick at offensive tackle. To me, it's really, really important that you walk away from this draft with a starter that is going to be there for the next 10 years. And particularly if it's a starter that's going to help Justin Fields be the best that he can be, Paris Johnson probably, if you were to list the players of, okay, who are the guys that can help Justin Fields be the absolute best that he could be, Paris Johnson would be in the top 3 of that list, if not at the very top. It's not only because of his physical size, his athletic ability, his results at playing the offensive line at Ohio State, but it's also the kinship that he has with Justin Fields. And I think that's important too when you're building a team. He's a high character guy. I want him on my team. So we get done with the first round, and at 33, guess who is there? It's highly unlikely that this will happen, but this guy was there, Miles Murphy, defensive end out of Clemson. There have been some stories about, where exactly he is going to go in the draft, because while he is a bit of an athletic freak, some of the results haven't been there. And so perhaps that's why in this draft scenario, he drops down to 33. But this accomplishes my 2 biggest priorities, which is to get potential stars at the offensive and defensive line. So I got really lucky with Miles Murphy. If he's not there, then you're probably looking at a Felix Anaduge that you guys drafted for obvious reasons. I'm not a huge fan of Felix, by the way. I think that he's kind of just an average guy, and I really want to shoot for the stars. I would even consider trading back into the first round. If I saw Miles Murphy kind of lingering there in the mid-20s, I would consider trading some future draft assets and some of the wealth that you've got in the middle rounds to see if that could happen. But if you can walk away with a Paris Johnson and a Miles Murphy, then I think you've hit home runs. And then I've been saying this now for months. I really do believe that the starting running back for the Chicago Bears in 2023 is going to be at that draft. And lo and behold, at 53, the kid from Alabama is there, Jahmyr Gibbs. I love this pick. This guy will now be your starting running back for the next 4 seasons, and he will come in and play like a pro from the first snap, and he will deliver on all of the needs for Luke Getsy's offense. I'm not quite sure how well he is as a pass blocker, but from a run perspective and catcher of the football, this guy fills all the boxes. Let's not forget that the Foreman right now, Deontay Foreman, is the number 1 back. He signed for a 1-year contract, so he's really here as to me, Foreman is more here as a Mike Glennon kind of guy, and that what I mean is the real running back is coming in the draft. So hopefully it's not going to be a Mitchell Trubisky type of running back. It's going to be a Patrick Mahomes type of running back, and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Mike Glennon, though, that's kind of disrespectful.
Whatever his name is, the giraffe guy. And then with my final pick on my 3-round mock is you guys have talked about him a lot, Keanu Benton. I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I truly agree with Danny that he's got the capability of becoming a 3 tech on this defense because the quickness was there. And as Danny has said before, he was misused at Wisconsin. Having him out on the outside, he's much better suited for the inside. He's got the power to push guards and even double teams back into the lap of the quarterback, and if he's one-on-one with a guard, he's got the quickness to get into the backfield. I think all of these 4 guys probably won't be available when you're drafting. Well, I shouldn't say with Paris Johnson, but at 33, I doubt Murphy will be there. At 53, I doubt Gibbs will be there. And frankly, I think at 61, I doubt Benton will be there. But if those guys are there, I walk away with Paris Johnson, Miles Murphy, Jameer Gibbs, and Keanu Benton. I'm having a big celebration afterwards. Everyone at my house, drinks are on me. We're going to have a fun time. What do you guys think about my draft?
Well, that's a lot to unpack there. So let's start with the positive. I think the dream scenario would be if Jamar Gibbs is there at 53. I think that would be a home run pick there. Obviously, Keanu Benton is at 61. That's where I had him going there as well. So, but the other thing is I'm glad that you're not running the Bears as a GM, because you got absolutely fleeced in that trade of yours. You gave up the 9th pick to move down 3 spots, and you got 33, which is fine. But then you give up pick 64, which is the first pick in the 3rd round, which is high capital pick. Teams are going to be calling Ryan Poles for that pick, because you get to that after the 2nd round stops. Now you have to reset the board again. You don't just throw it in for pick 104. That you got fleeced. You gave me the poop emoji from my mock draft earlier. I give you 2 poop emojis for that trade, my friend. And then you go Miles Murphy, which again, I don't think he's going to step around, but he could be. He's a guy that looks the part coming off the team bus. You want him coming off first, long arms, big size, has a good first step get off. Is more of a straight line, pass rusher, a guy that I know I've scouted and I said, he's a solid run defender, not great. But he's not a guy that, in my opinion, is going to be a double-digit sack guy. He's a guy that's going to be a starter along the defensive line and be a solid starter. 7, 8 sacks a season is probably where he's going to give you consistently. I'm thinking give solid run defense. So he's a solid player. So I think where you got him was good value. But again, just that trade just got me off on the wrong foot there. And I'm just, you got some good players, but I don't like that trade.
Let me, Neil, before you comment, let me defend it a little bit. And I understand. I thought too that, this is a lot. But when there's a player on the board that you really, really want, then I think you need to make some sacrifices. And in this case, I truly believe that this guy, he could be a bust, Miles Murphy. But the potential for him being a boom is really high because of the athletic skills that this guy has. And so if you are satisfied with the personal interview and you really do believe that he's going to buy into his philosophy and you really do believe that he has the capability of doing what is asked of him at that defensive end position, then I think you've got to go there, because let's face it, this guy was a top 10 pick a few weeks ago, which is another reason why it's highly unlikely he'll be there at 33. But I just feel like it was worth overpaying a little bit to bring in Murphy. What do you think, Neil?
But when you made the trade, you didn't know Miles Murphy was going to be there at 33. So you made the trade first, and then Miles Murphy happened to fall for your 33.
That is correct.
You gave up capital to get Miles Murphy. All right. I just caught you, Mr. GM, in a lie.
Except for Danny.
You fucker. Anyway, go ahead, Neil.
The universal pessimist. Universal pessimist, Danny Shimon. I just found a mock that I didn't share with you, Aldo, that might make Danny start rethinking his Superman shirt. But I'll get to that in a second. In a vacuum, getting those players at those positions, the value that you're getting in, phenomenal. I don't think, I don't think you can. And again, we don't know what Miles Murphy's going to be, but getting him at where you got him, I forget what number that was.
33.
33. Getting him at 33, phenomenal value.
Yeah, it's good value.
Jameer Gibbs at 53, phenomenal value.
Right? He's a solid starter. He's going to be a solid starter on the defensive line for sure.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the stud pass rusher that Felix Nduke Uzuma is going to be, but he'll be a solid starter.
Oh, sure, but again, I don't have my other notebook up here, but you look at what we have across the defensive line right now. You don't have your future at any single position.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can lock down your future at one of those positions in this draft, let alone 2 or 3 of them, I think you're feeling pretty good about yourself. I think he could be a really good strong side defensive end.
Yep.
To be honest, but
yeah, he's a left end for me, not a right end.
Yeah, I mean, either way, but the fact of the matter is, like, I think you got tremendous value in all of the drafts that I executed, in the 985 drafts that I executed today.
We're gonna hit 1,000 by the end of the night. We're gonna hit 1,000. I know it.
We're almost there. We're almost there. In every single one of these drafts in that I mocked, that actually had trades executed, at no point did I give up pick 64 to pick 103. And it was really hard to give up any of those late second rounders as well. In one of them, I gave up the one that we talked about today. I gave up pick 50 or 61. So I don't know. I felt that where my value was, if I was executing trades, was yes, trading back, but also getting my first pick somewhere in late round 1, early round 2. Somewhere between 25 and 33. 33, 34, 35, somewhere there, 25 to 35. They're getting another one in the 40s, keeping your 53, 61, 64, right? And then I also had at one point executed enough trades to where I had 61, 62, 63, 64, and something in the 70s and something in the 90s, which is absolutely incredible. It might have been one of those I sent you all, I can't really remember. But I felt like, really that area between 25 and 70 has a lot of talent that are going to come in and be immediate impacts. I think that's your wheelhouse.
That's the one thing doing this, and that's the wheelhouse of this draft, guys. It's between picks 20 and like 55, 60 is a lot of these good players are going to be in that round, and that's why sitting and doing these mocks. One thing I realized, and I think you guys kind of are on board with this one as well, is that that's a long wait from 9 to 53.
Yeah,
a lot of players. Oh, you're like, oh, he's gone. Oh, he's gone. It's like. That's where I think Ryan Poles is going to look to make a trade. Now, the key, obviously, is having a partner, right? And I think if one of these quarterbacks drops, I think a team like Tennessee, possibly a team like Houston, if they bypass, the quarterback in the first pick, might try to come back up. And now you might be able to get yourself a second round pick in that range, offset that. You might go down 2 or 3 slots. And that's what was my thinking in terms of making my trades. It was like, hey, I wanted a second round pick in between. And I got those in some of those trades. So I hopefully that presents itself to Ryan Poles. I think the one thing that we can all agree on is in all of our mocks is we got starters. And that's something we've been saying with these first 3 rounds. It's incumbent.
They got big athletic dudes, tackle the trenches.
Starters. They got to find starters, and they got to find guys in the trenches. And whether offensive line, defensive tackle, edge guys, that's a thing you got to go. Aldo has a thing for running backs, and he wants a running back. So he got a a pretty good one potentially there in Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not going to hate that one because I think he's him and obviously Bijan Robinson are ahead of this class, and there's a drop off in terms of immediate starter potential. But the one thing also, Aldo, you said there in your explanation is Dante Foreman is your starter. No, I think Khalil Herbert is your starter. I think Dante Foreman is a nice 1-2 punch, gives you that option. I think Herbert, as he stays healthy, as long as he stays, and he hasn't been able to do that. If he stays healthy, I think Khalil Herbert fits the system more. I think Foreman's more of a downhill, power kind of runner, where Herbert has that vision, be able to cut back and give you some of that, when you, those wide zone runs and be able to cut back, plant, and just head up the field. So I think Herbert, 1-2 punch. Again, I'm not fretting the running back position that much because of those two guys. Now I do think they will get one in this draft eventually. So we'll see. And I have my scouting reports on the running backs that I've kind of targeted in that range coming up on our Patreon page. So you guys can see those there. But there are some that are specifically a nice scheme fit for this zone scheme, and I think they'll probably get one towards tail end of the draft. If not, I mean they have bodies there, right? Travis Homer is a guy that Ryan Poles likes a lot. Coming out of Miami, he was a guy that, to me, shows some potential. Now he's been relegated to a special teams player in like a third down back at Seattle. So maybe they were not using him in the proper ways. We'll see what they have. The Bears have plans for him. So there's some potential there as well. So I'm not sweating the running back position as much as I think some others are. But that's the one thing is like you got to attack the trenches if you're Ryan Poles and the Bears in this draft.
And especially that running back position.
Yeah.
Aldo and Danny, I think that like between 90 and 140, you're going to be able to find a productive player to fit what we do in that running back room.
I agree. I mean, this is a draft that's rich. It really, really is. But in terms of richness in guys that can be 3-down backs, it's not that rich. You know,
Right.
when you look at a Devon Shane, I would love that guy on the team.
He's
4.32
not. Yeah.
speed,
Yeah.
but there's no way. Tajay Spears, I would love him on the Bears, but I'm not going to have him out there pass blocking on 3rd down.
Right.
Tank
Right.
Bigsby is a guy that could potentially be a 3-down back, but he's kind of unproven as a pass catcher. Rashawn Johnson, he played behind Bijan Robinson, so he was a backup in college. I can't gamble that he's going to be an everyday back. Abenakanda, Kendra Miller, Zach Evans, Eric Gray, Chase Brown, all of these guys are rotational guys. They're rotational guys. And so I want a guy, because I want to make sure that Justin Fields is only running on a predetermined 3 plays a game, plays that are strategically designed to take advantage of the defense, and then he's going to run another 2-3 times because the pocket breaks down and so forth. That's all I want. That's all I want out of the guy who led the team in rushing last year. If we're going to have a really good rushing team, we need a true number 1 back. And to me, I don't think we have one. I think that Khalil Herbert, what he showed last year is that he is an outstanding backup player, but when he got a chance to start for David Montgomery last year, he laid an egg. Now, in the previous year, in 2021, he did have a couple of good starts for Montgomery, so I'll give him that. But I'm not comfortable with saying that Khalil Herbert is the number 1 running back for the Bears. I'm not.
But the one thing, Aldo, is this NFL, there is no true. It's not the old school 1 back. Does it all. It's a platoon back there. It's this guy's got the power. This guy's got the speed. This guy's got the hands. Catch out of the backfield. So I think that's what the NFL is. So right. And for me, the only 2 backs in this draft that are, for me at least, starter down in, down out. Even Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy. Maybe you kind of take kind of like I'm not sure if he's every down back. But I mean, Bijan Robinson I think is a 3-down back, and I think obviously I think. Right now, I put Gibbs in there as well. So those 2 backs are, for sure 3-down backs. But again, it's just not the type of NFL now where you want or they utilize these 3-down backs anymore. It's always a platoon. It's a one guy. Look at Detroit. They got Travis Best, and last year they had Jamal Williams. They let Jamal Williams walk. They go get David Montgomery. They're probably going to draft another running back this year. I mean, they have these guys as like a plethora back there that just get you fresh legs and be able to, at least as long as they fit the scheme and give you something that the other guy doesn't. I think that's what they're looking for. I think right now with Foreman and with Herbert, I think that's a nice 1-2 punch. And then who's that third guy going to be? Is it going to be Homer? Guy comes in, gives you that pass blocking ability and a pass catching ability out of the backfield. Is it going to be a rookie? We'll see. But I just there are not going to be, especially now with these short running games. Remember these bubble screens, these slip screens, they get these ball in the hands of these players. And then a chain is a guy you just talked about. He's a guy that I've scouted, and he's 202 pounds, I think, dripping wet. Track guy, 100 meters guy. He's got speed, straight line speed that you want, and he gives you that ability to bring that big play potential on your offense. But again, not going to be a guy that's going to be a down in and down out, 3-down back. He's a guy that's going to be come in and have specialty plays. Again, bring that excitement, the element of speed to your offense. But but there are guys that you can bring in here and be part of a rotation or part of a platoon that kind of help, whether it's Herbert in the future or another running back, to kind of be a 1-2 punch with them. And that's what I'm looking for in this draft.
If that's the strategy you want to take, then you are going to find a good rotational back in this draft, because there are tons of them. There really are tons of them. But if you want to have a true number 1 running back, a guy that you would love to see get 20 touches a game, then Gibbs is the guy, and he can catch the ball 7 times. You can run the ball 13 times. Then between Herbert and Foreman, they get the other touches from the running back position. That's the kind of scenario I would love to see for this Bears, because the passing game is still going to take some time to develop. I don't think Fields is going to make a quantum leap in his passing attack. I think he's going to improve, but the offense is still a run-first offense, at least in 2023 is what I forecast.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this offense is based run first, and that's how it's going to be, and that's how it's built. It's the Sean McVay offense, it's the Matt LaFleur offense, and that's what they do. Is they do the set up the run, set up the play action, to be able to then hit you downfield with some big plays. So that's definitely going to be the case as well. Yeah, the thing is, like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, you don't want Justin Fields rushing for 1,000 yards. You just don't want that for his longevity, for the overall production and overall development of this offense and the skill position players. You do not want your quarterback rushing for 1,000 yards. So that's definitely going to be something that to keep an eye on. I think. We'll see how the improved room at the receiving core and hopefully an improved offensive line would go ahead and kind of help us there as well.
BT9 wanted to see some
Alabama
clips
running backs.
BT9 wanted to see some clips of Jahmyr Gibbs, and this is what he can do. I mean, that speed is electrifying. I want a speed back in our backfield this year. And hopefully it's this guy, and if it's not, then maybe it's a rotational back who can give us that 4.3. But the moves, what he does in the open field, making people miss. He's got good hands to catch the ball. This guy has it, man. This guy has it. He's got it all.
Yeah, he's a talented player. You're not going to get a qualm out of me in terms of the talent. That'd be a great player to add to your offense. But I just at one point do I let go or bypass a potential starting defensive lineman or offensive lineman and pick a running back if I have no one to block for him? That's where I'm kind of going here.
Speaking of Alabama running backs, did anybody get the Raiders offering you Josh Jacobs?
Yes. I got it so many times. I got Josh Jacobs offered to me. I got Carolina offering me their second round pick for another, and then Brian Burns. And
Brian Burns got that one.
Yeah, it's just crazy picks. But
on your mock draft simulator, you were offered. Really, I didn't get
offered players. Freaking Titans in one of the 1,002 Evans, that I did offer me Brian Tannehill.
Tampa kept offering me Mike Evans. I'm like, dude, I don't want him. Just leave me alone.
Got that one a bunch of times too.
That's hilarious. All right, let's see what we got in the chat room. We talked about J-Rocks. And Sam Rush wants to know, okay, I like all of Danny's picks except for Skoronski, unless we trade Tevin Jenkins, which brings to mind, what are we going to do with Tevin Jenkins?
I don't think Ryan Poles and this team are counting on Tevin Jenkins, guys. I think whatever that he gives them is a bonus. I don't think they're going to go into the season saying, all right, Tevin Jenkins is penciled in as one of my starting offensive linemen. That's the thing that I took out of the post free agency news conference, if you will, where he said Nate Davis is going to come in and play guard, and now the guy's played right guard for his entire career. I don't think they're moving him. So I think what he said was, we're going to put the best 5 guys out there. They didn't say Tevin Jenkins is going to be one of the best 5 guys. He's going to give an opportunity, whether it's a left guard, whether it's a right tackle. So I think the Bears are not counting on Tevin Jenkins. That's why with me, when I made these scenarios, I'm like, all right, listen, I'm looking at Skoronski. He's not going to play tackle for me. He's going to be my guard, but he's going to be my left guard. And he's going to be my left guard for the next 5 or 7 years. Him and Braxton Jones, a nice, formidable left side, protects the blind side of your right-handed quarterback. And now we move on, right? We got right guard with Nate Davis. Center, we think it's going to be Cody Whitehair. We'll see what happens there. Right tackle is the area of need, and Tevin Jenkins has played right tackle. Not really great, but it's a spot that I think Neil and I both thought he could, or is better suited for, as opposed to left tackle. So I'd give him a shot there to compete, whether it's with a veteran, whether it's with Leatherwood, or whether it's another draft pick, which is what I think is going to happen. So I think that's where they're going to go with. But again, Skoronski was a starter for me for the next 5 or 7 years, Pro Bowl caliber player at left guard, not at tackle. And I think that was the best value. And I got my extra picks that I wanted.
All right. Neil, do you have any thoughts on what Tevin Jenkins' future might be with the Chicago Bears?
I think it's up in the air, honestly. The dude is still looking for a position, and he hasn't been healthy. So I still don't think we've seen really what sort of end result Tevin Jenkins gives us in terms of his future on this offensive line. I think we're still in discovery mode with this kid.
Yeah. He's, the guy proved that he can become a really high quality right guard. There's just this cloud of uncertainty around him with injuries and, what's going on with some of the relationship issues with him. He's a bit of an enigma right now. Let's move on to another question. Cornelia says, well, obviously, if this draft was longer, Danny would have drafted one of his many explosive running backs. So, guys, if you can each give me a name of an explosive running back that you would like to see the Bears target in day 3, because I think you're both in agreement. Let's not, take a running back. There's too many other areas of need. But, let's say Luke Getzey says, come on, General Manager Neil. Come on, General Manager Danny. I want a explosive running back to have in my room. Give me a name, fellas. Start with you, Danny.
Well, for me, obviously, I'm going day 3 with my running backs, and there's a couple of guys that I think could be there. One is the guy we talked about is Israel Abed. I'm gonna butcher his name. Abakanda.
Abanikanda.
Pitt. Again, he's a Pitt players are tough, physical players. This kid ran a 4.45 40 with a 1.50, 10-yard split, 41-inch vertical. So he's got that explosiveness. Again, this is a guy that is a track star, has got that speed. What I'm looking for a scheme fit. Can he extend the play? Can he do the wide zone scheme? Plant his foot in the ground, hit upfield, and Abakanda gives you that on tape. So he's a guy that fits this scheme nicely. Again, gives you some of that potential in terms of a big playability, and also again some physicalness at the point of attack. But unfortunately, in terms of pass catching, he wasn't really utilized that much in terms of the passing game. But hasn't showed to be horrible in terms of catching the ball. Dwayne McBride is a guy that I like a lot from UAB. He hasn't tested this post draft period here because he's dealing with a hamstring injury. Another guy that fits that zone scheme, gives you some quick twitch ability. Put a game against Georgia last year, and they got killed, but he was the guy that looked like he belonged on the football field, and that's going up against Georgia's defensive front. So there's times where he had nowhere to go, and he still would just pound in between those guys and get some tough yards. My big thing with him is ball security. He's got, if my numbers are not mistaken, he's got 10 fumbles with 7 lost. So that's something he's going to have to work on is ball security. So something to keep an eye on. And a real sleeper, guys. And this guy that I touched on last week's show, a guy that's probably going to go 6th, 7th round, maybe, is Xavier Valladay from Arizona State. This is a 5th-year senior, was at Wyoming for 4 years, went to Arizona State. His pro day numbers were 4.4 40, 10.3 broad jump, had a 40-inch vertical. Another guy that I think fits that wide zone scheme. Tough physical player, tremendous in terms of catching the ball out of the backfield. He's had 88 receptions over his career in college, and being just a natural catcher of the football. Guy comes out, runs. He can run some wheel routes for you. He can run routes in a flat. Again, tough guy. Wide zone, can see the cut back lane, has that good vision, plant his foot, cut up field, and take it up for 10, 15, 20 yards. So Xavier Valladay, I'll have his scouting reports and some of the other guys here up on our Patreon page here coming up soon. But these are some guys in day 3 that I've earmarked for the Bears, specifically that wide zone scheme.
You got a explosive day 3 running back you'd like to brag about?
Yeah, I mean, they're the 2 guys that I keep on talking nonstop about is Chase Brown and Israel Abanikanda. I absolutely love Chase Brown. I think Chase Brown does a lot of the things that we loved about what David Montgomery can do. He's got 4.43 speed. He's got explosiveness in his numbers at the combine were 40 and 10'7". He showed at the Senior Bowl that he can take the ball out of the backfield and in the passing game, and he was probably the best one there in terms of the one-on-one pass blocking drills. I mean, he was the only one there that was consistently shutting guys down, sticking his nose in there, being physical. And in terms of him as a ball carrier, as a runner, he's not just a fast finesse guy. He'll happily run your ass over too at the same time. So I love really like the complete game that Brown gives you. And Israel Abanikanda is a guy that I just really started jumping on board with over the course of the past couple months. Started watching a little bit more of his film, and obviously he blew away his pro day, which I didn't exactly expect was going to happen. But now his numbers are really inflated, and he probably ran himself up some boards a little bit. But those are the 2 guys that I've really liked. I've talked about for the past couple of shows. Would love to see in Chicago. Obviously Chase Brown I've been talking about since day 1. So if we can figure out a way to get Chase and Sydney both in the locker room, that'd be sick.
Indeed. All right, let's get another question out of the way here. Let's go with Corey Owens, who wants to know, for that 9th overall pick, the first round pick, let's just say, he wants to know, do you want need? Do you draft for need or the best player on your board? Start with you, Danny Shimon.
No, you always draft best player. You always draft best player because if you draft for need, you tend to kill yourself, and you're trying to reach for players that you want because you have a need. So I just think that at 9, the way this draft could fall, I think the best player available and the need for the Bears will probably be hand in hand there with an offensive lineman. So, but if one of the defensive linemen just falls, for example, if Tyree Wilson in my dream scenario, if my top player in this draft, Tyree Wilson, is there, that's who I'm going hands on. I'm running. I'm doing cartwheels to turn that card in. Obviously, Jalen Carter, we talked about earlier with Neil's picks. If Jalen Carter is there, I think long and hard about taking that monster in the middle of the defensive front with even with all the question marks surrounding him. And obviously, Will Anderson, he's not an ideal scheme fit for this Bears, I don't think, but I think in terms of what he can bring you in terms of a defensive player, effort, closing burst, speed, guy that potentially give you some pass rush as well. I think you would go there and kind of just and look for, because tackles, you can probably bring in a guy in the later second round where he can be potentially a guy that can compete for your starting right tackle position. So but the defensive tackle and guys like Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson, you can't find later on in the second round of this draft. So that's where I would supersede. But I just think those 3 defensive players are going to be gone by the time the Bears pick. And I think just the way it falls, the tackles, the offensive linemen are going to be probably the top players, on the one position that I don't want to draft. And this could I be missing on a superstar player? Potentially, but I do not want to draft a cornerback with that number 9 pick. I don't care how good Christian Gonzalez is. I don't care how good. I love Devin Witherspoon. I love his game. I love his physicality. But I don't want a corner number 9 because for my count, I think there's like 30 plus guys, corners that could potentially start in this league. And I think you can get a corner in the 3rd, 4th round, as we've seen in some of our mock drafts here. So I don't draft a corner in that first round. So I think offensive line will be the kind of, it'll be all line up for the Bears in terms of the best player available and in a position of need as well.
What do you think, Neil? You're drafting, when it comes to number 9, you couldn't work out a trade. Are you drafting need or best player available?
Just a quick touch on that, on the quarterback point that Danny made. It was right before we went on the air. The Chicago Bears app or website or whatever had a listing of like all the prominent, right? Always in air quotes, prominent people that were, mocking what the Bears were going to do at number 9. You had some of these guys giving us Christian Gonzalez. There was Witherspoon. Somebody called Chad Reuter at NFL said Bijan Robinson. And then Ian Valentino at PFN mocked us Kalijah Kancey at 9.
That's just ridiculous.
These are writers. They're not evaluators.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why I always say people of prominence, quote unquote, because these people probably don't watch a film or have any clue what the Bears actually need, not paying attention. That to me was just absurd. I just had to get that in there. But I mean, it's always to me like a sliding scale a little bit. But I mean, with a pick in the top 10, I think you need to really just like nail down what your top needs are, what your dire needs are, and then like Danny said, go and pick the best player out of those dire needs that you have. We have a dire need at edge rush. We have a dire need in interior defensive line. We have a dire need at right tackle. And so, of those 3 positions, what's the best player amongst those 3 positions to get? And then also look back in the draft and see where are you picking. Coming up here, can you orchestrate a trade to get somebody at a premier spot? And if not, what are the next positions or what the guys available at the other positions of need? Where are those guys falling? And try to manufacture the best combination of possible, assets to bring it into your locker room as possible, which isn't always an easy thing. I think a lot of times even some of us can get emotional as fans and be like, what the hell are we doing with some of the picks that we're making? But draft day isn't exactly like one of those things you buy at Costco. It doesn't come fancy, all packaged up fancy in a box. There craziness happens, and you get screwed out of situations, or if you can sense situations popping up, you can get out in front of it and get yourself to where you need to be. But That's really, and I think, when you look at the way that we did these mocks, at least the way I was looking at how I was doing these mocks, and with so many different kinds of scenarios popping up in my head, like, what if this happens? What if I can find this guy here? What if this guy comes available here? Every single case of scenario. I look at 9. If I'm not making a trade, I look at 9, 53, 61, 64. What's the best possible combination of players that could possibly fall in those slots, and just try to get the best combination of 4. If you end up getting a plethora of picks, increasing your draft capital, still you're trying to find the best combination. But you are attacking the needs, though. You're just trying to find the best possible player at the most necessary needs that you have.
All right, let's get 2 or 3 more questions out of the way, and then there's one mock draft I'd like for you guys to quickly comment on, because I made a promise to my man Vinny Parisi, who posted his mock draft at WindyCityGridiron.com.
Is it a hockey mock draft, or is it an actual?
He writes about all Chicago sports.
I'm just giving Vinny a hard time because he's a hockey guy.
He really is. He knows his shit when it comes to hockey. My man I Am Skoke says, hey, any thoughts on Alex Palczewski? I think it's Palczewski, the right tackle from Palczewski. Thank you. The right tackle from Illinois. Neil, you know how to pronounce his last name, so you got any thoughts on the big right tackle?
He's Polish and probably tough, so yeah, I love him. I have no idea. I haven't watched the film. I'll lean on, if you watch his film, Danny, I'll lean on you. I'm not very familiar with him.
I haven't done him yet, but he's on my next block to do. But yeah, I mean, he, in terms of what he gives you guys a good size, some experience, tough brand player as well. I'm trying to see if I have his numbers here in terms of his combine numbers handy.
I got it. He's 6'6.5", 303 pounds. He ran the 40 and 5.27, the 10-yard split at 175, the 3-cone at 7.74. And I'm gonna tell you his arms are 33 and 5/8.
Right. So that tells me that he may not be athletic enough for the scheme, but however, I want to see his tape. I want to be able to, give him a fair shot. Just off those numbers, you talk about, in terms of limited athletic ability, be able to, the one thing here is you want to see how this kid can elevate to the next level. But again, I think, coming in right now, just off the top of my head, I think he's a day 3 pick. And what I'll do is I have him earmarked again for my next round of offensive linemen. So I will be posting that scouting report here soon.
And I can tell you that Dane Brugler and the Beast, which was just released over at The Athletic, says that the biggest problem with Alex's game is that his hands are constantly out here. And so he is getting bull rushed over and over again, and he's played a lot of right tackle and some guard, so he's got some experience up and down the line. But there's just some technical things that are worrisome about him, including his hand, how he uses his hands.
Well, see, I don't worry about that because that's a coaching thing, right? So as long as he's got the trace, he's got the ability to talent to play at the next level. That's what I have my coaches for. So that's why, if it's a thing where he's opening up wide and he's exposing his torso and his chest to defender, and you know what, a coach can get in there. He's going to show him how to close in that his arms and be able to strike quicker. So those things don't worry me as much. They might drop him in terms of where he gets picked, but definitely a guy that I'm looking for traits and his ability athletically to can he fit in this system is what I'm looking for.
Like
J-Rock wants to know. Go ahead.
Real quick, Aldo. Like for example, Joe Tippmann has a lot of those same problems. He's really bad with his hands. He's wide. He's off balance. He lunges. All those different types of things, all coachable things. Like he has an incredible natural traits. The size, the athletic ability. He can operate in space. The whole deal. He's got to be coached out of the bad habits, right? He's one of the top centers in this draft, but he has so many bad habits, which is why he's not going to go as high as maybe his athletic ability would say. With this other kid, he might just not have the athletic ability to, like Danny said, function in terms of what we need him to do. So, the coachable things are not the things that worry you. It's the athletic traits and the length numbers are the things that you really got to look out for.
All right, let's see. Let's get into the question here. It looks like J-Rock wants to know about what you guys might think about the right tackle from the University of Georgia, the gentleman who was involved in that car crash, Warren McClendon. Any thoughts?
Yeah, McClendon at 6'4", 306, 34.5-inch arm length. So he's got the arm length that you like in your tackles. He's got the basketball background in high school, so he's an athletic guy. 3-year starter at right tackle for Georgia. So, watch his tape. For me, there's a lot of things to like about him. Again, the long hands, the big hands. He can bring some physicality. He's a guy that can, move some guys off the line of scrimmage. Doesn't have the ideal height or athletic ability to be an offensive tackle at this next level. I think his best position is probably inside a guard. So that's where I'm positioning him as that right guard as opposed to right tackle. So that's and as a day 3 pick for me right now.
Any thoughts, Neil?
Yeah, day 3 guy. Not a guy that really moved the needle for me, really, one way or the other. Don't have a strong feeling. Don't have a negative feeling.
All righty. Let's see. Let us go now to Cliff Victoria. Has an interesting question. He says, what's the over-under how many picks Pose ends up with in this draft? He's guessing 14 as the median. I think it's going to be less than that. I think if anything, he's going to move up. I think he got his big booty of, day 3 picks last year. A lot of those guys, were on the practice squad. And so I think that he's going to draft a little bit more for quality. So I'm putting it around 7. What do you guys think?
Oh, I'll be pissed if it's only 7. I mean, he's got so many holes on his roster. I don't think he's got to go within at least. He's got 10 now. So I mean, at the worst, I want him coming back out of here with 10, right? He can move up and move down and do all that stuff. But I'd say Cliff 14 would be great because but I don't think he's going to go that high. I think 12, 11 is probably where he's going to end up with. But like I said, he's got 10 now. He's going to do some moving back. He's going to do some moving up. But probably in that second and third round, we'll see what happens there. But he's got so many holes on his roster. I just think you just attack it with as much bodies as you can. Not saying all of them are going to make the football team, but again, you just keep swinging it and you never know. Right? And then you also have, there's the undrafted free agent class and all that stuff. So I think, he still has a lot of holes, a lot of needs, and a lot of depth to fill if not starters. Right. So I think he's got to come out here. Like he's got 10 now. I'd say he's got to come out with at least 11 or 12 once the draft is done.
Mm-hmm.
I think 14 is like really high. I think 7's really low. What do you have last year? 10?
12.
We ended up with last year.
He took 5. He took 5 and ended up with 12.
Yeah.
Oh, well, shit. Yeah, in that case, I feel like we're going to be somewhere around 10 then. I feel it's going to be a little bit less than we had last year.
Yeah, I think 10's a good
10,
number.
10 for me. 10's my over-under. Let's go 10 and a half.
All right, he's putting $20 on 10 there, Cliff. Okay, let us. J2K wants to know, who do you guys like at the tight end position? Who do you think would be a good tight end for the Chicago Bears team? There's a lot of good tight ends in this class. One of the tight ends that I like is the kid out of Purdue, Payne Durham. I really love this performance down at the Senior Bowl. Yeah, he's not a lightning guy. He's a wide tight end. He could fit in well as a guy who is just going to help with your blocking first and foremost, but he's got smooth hands, and so he's a big target. If you throw it up to him, he's likely to come down with the ball, and he's just a great rah fired up kind of guy that I'd love to see in this locker room. Payne Durham is like a day 3 tight end. I wouldn't mind seeing the Bears walk away with him, but there's a number of other guys that I like too. What about you guys? Start with you, Danny.
My guy, I've talked about it before, is Sam Laporta from Iowa. I know his size is about 6'3", so he's in that hybrid kind of range. But Iowa tight ends always come out. They're always guys that are productive. I haven't done a deep dive into tight ends yet, just because I've been kind of just focusing on the trenches right now and some of the cornerbacks and receivers and running backs. But tight ends are next on my list, along with a double back on some of the offensive linemen. So, but Laporta is a guy that I've admired his game for the last couple of years. Athletic, 4'9", 40, had a 1.59 10-yard split, 35-inch vertical, 6'9", 1, 3 cones. So the guy can move. If he turns into a poor man's George Kittle, I think that's a nice pickup. Again, he's a guy probably in that third day 3 range. Is probably going to pick up a guy, but Sam Laporta is a guy that I really like, just based off of watching him on week in and week out on Saturdays.
They don't give me a tight end.
Hang on, pulling this up right now. The one that really intrigues me is that kid out of Old Dominion, Zach Kuntz. I haven't done, like Danny, a very deep dive whatsoever at the tight end position yet at all. I'm just based on some things that I've seen here and there. some of the guys that performed at the combine. Zach Kuntz is really intriguing to me, and I need to look out and evaluate more of this kid. But 6'7", 255 at the combine, 34-inch arms, 10 and a quarter hands. I think he was the number one or at least top 2 or 3 in every metric at the combine. Ran 4.55 40 at that size, 6'7", 255, 157 split, 40-inch vertical, 10'8" broad jump, and then the agility, the quickness drill, 6'8", 3-cone, 4.12 shuttle is absurd. 23 reps on the bench, so he's got some strength to him as well. I don't know a whole lot about the kid other than what I've heard him say in interviews, what I saw him do at the combine. Looking at these numbers, these measurables are off the charts. That's a kid that intrigues the hell out of me if I'm Ryan Poles, and I'm trying to find out everything about this kid as I possibly can.
Yeah, this is a kid. It's very intriguing. A highly athletic, big guy, big target, big catch radius. 4.55 40. The 6.87 3-cone for a guy that size is very, very impressive. And the school guys in the chat, if you guys remember, this guy went to a prominent school prior to going to Old Dominion. It was a big program.
Penn State.
Penn State, thank you. It was at Penn State. He was there, and then he transferred to Old Dominion. So he's a guy that was highly recruited coming out of high school. So he's got some athletic ability, and he's intriguing. But again, most of us hadn't heard of him until the combine. So we'll see how he does there. But he's an intriguing athletic prospect.
And the interesting thing about this kid is that he didn't leave Penn State because he couldn't play. He left Penn State because he just wanted to be closer to family and wanted to make it easier for his family to come see him play. He's a very blue collar workmanship, attitude, type of kid. In terms of like intangibles, he's got that mental makeup that you want to stick in that locker room. Seems like a Poles type of guy.
All right, let's take a look at Vinny Parisi's draft over at the windycity.com. I told him that what we were working on tonight, and he said, well, yeah, ask the guys if they wouldn't mind taking a look at my draft. Clearly, he's going with a tried-and-true pick with Paris Johnson. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit more. And so I know what you guys are going to say about that, but let's go to round 2. Clark Phillips at number 53. What say you guys about Mr. Clark Phillips that high?
Well, I mean, who else had Clark Phillips in his mock draft, my friend?
Must have been Danny Shimon.
Yes, sir. So Vinny Parisi's been listening to Danny Shimon here and doing his mock draft. I like that, Vinny.
Very good. And then look at that, number 61.
Other guy. My guy, I know I liked Vinny for a reason.
That's right. He knows more than just pucks and whatever the hell, pucks and fucks. What about Zach Pickens? Now this is might be kind of a reach at round 3, huh?
4.
Yeah, he's an all teams player. He's a guy, all bus player. A guy comes off the bus and you want him again first in line because he's got an intimidating frame, big guy, athletic. Maybe Neil's got some more to offer in terms of his background, but Pickens is a guy that I think underachieved a little bit at South Carolina. Definitely intriguing. A guy, again, I want a for sure starter. Now, could Zach Pickens develop into a starter eventually? Sure. But I don't know if I feel confident 64 bringing him in and saying, all right, this guy's going to be my starting, defensive tackle next year. So, but a very intriguing developmental type of prospect there.
I think the thoughts I had on him going into our Senior Bowl show was he was a guy that was highly recruited coming out. I think he actually was a South Carolina kid, or maybe he was a Georgia kid, somewhere in that general area of the country. But he was the type of dude that was highly regarded coming out of high school and didn't quite peak out to where we thought he was going to peak out. Definitely could still be a late bloomer type of kid, but I think you're taking a chance with him in the 3rd round. You love his measurables, 1,000%, and did some okay things in Mobile. But I can think of a lot of different ways to beef up the interior than starting off with Zach Pickens.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a jam-packed 2 hours and 8-minute show. Lots of players discussed. I know, people like Cliff Victorious, not a big fan of mock drafts, but it is a good way to become familiar with these players. They're all going to be playing in the NFL. I don't think we talked about a single player who doesn't have a great shot at playing in the NFL, and so it's a great way to get familiar with these players. Danny Shimon, Neil Stopchinski, let me get your final words. Danny, let me start with you.
The one thing that was revealed today was that I do not want Aldo running my draft on draft night. That's 100%
You
confirmed.
said the same thing last
Other
year.
than that, I think we discussed some prospects that are going to be potential Bears come in 2 weeks or from now or from this weekend, I should say. So definitely exciting. There's going to be a potential. I'm really wanting to see what Ryan Poles does. Again, I started the show talking about the microscope I have this guy under. And I just want to see, so far I've been lukewarm in terms of all his moves. I'm starting from back on, year one. So let's see if Ryan Poles, what are you going to do here, Ryan Poles? How are you going to set this roster up for success in the upcoming future? So far, like I said, I haven't been overwhelmed. So, but hopefully he does a good job of pulling it through. And like I said, a lot of holes on this roster that still need to be filled. Defensive line is a huge area. He didn't touch in free agency, so we'll see what happens here in the draft. But yeah, definitely exciting times, and definitely going to have a lot more work to do on some of these prospects that we're going to be talking about probably heavily on day 3, which is rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Cornelius says, yeah, stick to podfathering. Thanks,
I agree.
All right, Neil, final words, please.
Yeah, Danny's right. This is an exercise that it shows that there's not a whole lot of perfection in the projection of players, right? I did 1,249 mocks trying to find
I knew it was
a realistic.
I knew it.
Huh?
I knew it was going to get over 1,000. I just knew it.
Oh, hey, you're just not paying attention. I've been saying the same number the entire time. No, but no, I mean, you do so many of these trying to find a realistic version of what you're probably going to find at the different positions that the Bears are going to find themselves in this draft, whether they trade or not. And it's just hard to really, you end up gaming the system, trying to game the system, collecting the best combination of 4, 5, 6, 7 guys you possibly can. And that's really what these things are. But it'll be interesting, going forward. I think we have another show next week. And as always, we love doing this kind of stuff. We love you guys showing up in the chat. We love all the interaction. We love the shit talking in the chat as well. Don Burr, the Lions can go to hell. Outside of that, do all the things, man. Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell. And I don't know if Danny does, but, in terms of another way to show your appreciation, I had the tips put on my Twitter profile. So if you guys want to, help us out and, show appreciation for what we do, feel free to hit the tip jar. Outside of that, you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. We got one more nice day of absolutely phenomenal weather tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoy it. It's going to be 69 and absolutely beautiful. Then we got another probably like a week long of winter before we actually get to spring. So I'm going to be enjoying my Friday. I don't know about you guys, but, I'm going to be out in the sun. I'm going to be enjoying it. Some rooftop music. It's going to be a good times.
Well, good for you. I'll be working. So I'm preparing for
coverage. I'll be grinding.
We're working until about 2:00, and then I'm going to go ahead and clock out for the week. That's what I'm going to do.
Good for you. All right, everybody. I just want to let you know that our coverage of live programming is going to continue through the weekend. A special hockey show, Bar Down Hockey Show. The playoff seedings are going to be firmed up tonight, and so Vinny Parisi and Frank Mueller will give you the lowdown on all the playoff pairings. And so, man, it's hard to find postseason play that's better than what the NHL offers. Even if you don't like hockey, if you watch NHL playoff hockey, you're going to fall in love with the excitement, the speed of the game. And Vinny and Frank are going to do a good job of previewing all of the matchups for the NHL season. Today was Jonathan Tay's last game with the Chicago Bears, and so they're going to cover that as well. That's all on Sunday morning. I am appearing with Swifty. He's asked me to come on his show tomorrow. I'm not sure when that show is going to go on, but follow him on Twitter and follow me. We'll let you know. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. And by the way, and Danny Shibben is going to be a future guest on the Irish Bear Show. I know Neil's been on that show before. So we are all over the place, not only here on the Barroom Network, but elsewhere as well. So for all of us here at the Barroom Network, I want to thank you for joining us live, and those of you listening to us on demand or watching us on demand. Take care, everybody.